I'd like to ask everyone to be seated so we can get started, please.
That's right. Give it to him.
There we go. That works.
All right. Good thing we have this. All right, thank you. Welcome, everybody, to the June 3rd regular meeting of the Plan and Design Commission of Highland Park here at Highland Park City Hall. Calling the meeting to order. What is it? 7:02 p.m. Okay. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Incheck.
Here.
Commissioner Fettner. Commissioner Nanis.
Here.
Commissioner Henry.
Here.
Commissioner Mantis.
Here.
Vice Chair Kirsch.
Present.
Chair Moore.
Present.
We have a quorum. And I recognize Corporation Counsel Marcus Martinez and Student Rep Alex Mendoza. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. The first item on our list is the approval of the minutes from the special meeting on May 20th. Can I get a motion? So moved. Can I get a
Seconded.
Okay. Does anybody have any comments on the minutes? All right. I had one comment. At the beginning, let me see, what page would it be? Okay, at the bottom of packet page, no, sorry, not that one. Okay, at the bottom of packet page 10 at line 43, we've said that the motion passed unanimously, there's no new notice, and the next meeting would take place at the Moraine. I just don't know if we need to specify that that's a special meeting as well.
Okay.
Or that it's the next meeting on this subject.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and call the roll.
Voice vote.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just voice.
Oh, sorry, voice vote, yes. All in favor? Aye. Any nays? Okay, motion passed. The minutes with that change have been approved. Okay, I'm gonna change up the agenda a little bit and go to number 5A, and we have a resolution honoring our outgoing student representative, Alex Mendoza. Alex has been here for the last year, listening and contributing and learning about city government, and we hope that doesn't scare you away from participating in city government at some point in your future. So I'll go ahead and read it. Whereas Alex Mendoza has served with distinction as a student representative to the Plan and Design Commission, leading and participating in consideration of cases essential to the improvement of this community, its neighborhoods, and the quality of life therein. And whereas Alex Mendoza was responsible for promoting and increasing community awareness of the need for sound residential and commercial planning and the need to appropriately design public and private improvements in Highland Park during their tenure as student representative on the Plan and Design Commission. And whereas in being the institutional memory for the commission and in serving with honor, their public service attests to their steadfast integrity, wisdom, and excellence of character. Be it therefore resolved that the members of the Plan and Design Commission of Highland Park do hereby recognize Alex Mendoza for their dedicated public service as student representative on behalf of the residents of the city. And it is further resolved that as an expression of our respect and grateful appreciation to Alex Mendoza's service, we hereby adopt this resolution as a permanent record thereof on the 3rd day of June 2025 in Highland Park, Illinois. And it's signed by all of us.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
move adoption of resolution.
Okay, can I get a second? All right, all in favor? Aye. There's no nays. Any nays? No. All right, so Alex, congratulations. We wish you all the best in your future endeavors. All righty. Okay, back to our scheduled business. The first item is public hearing PUD-2025-00050 for a special use permit in the nature of a concurrent preliminary and final planned development, final plat of re-subdivision and design review with modifications from city code at 2090 to 2100 Green Bay Road and 580 to 582 Glenview Avenue. This has previously been to us, and it's the corner of Green Bay Road and Glenview Avenue, north of downtown. So, Mr. Burhart, are you presenting to us today for
Yes,
this
thank
one?
you, Chair.
All righty.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Carl Burhop. I'm a senior planner with the Community Development Department in the Planning Division. And so this is about the project that has been to the commission, I believe twice before. So this is the third public hearing on this item. It's the corner property there on Glenview and Green Bay. And so this is it's a preliminary and final plan development approval for a 22-unit townhome development with three-story townhomes and attached two-car garages throughout the development. The rest of this is a slide. So yeah, this was initially at April 15th and then May 6th. At the May 6th Plan and Design Commission meeting, the commission to direct staff to draft findings of fact recommending approval. And so those were in the packet. I will note, there were not any conditions with that. The findings of fact adopt the plans as most recently updated and included in the packet. Of course, should the commission deem any conditions appropriate, you can certainly amend that now at the meeting if necessary. And so what is this consideration? So it's for a plan development. It's both the preliminary and final, and it includes modifications from code, which I will run through quickly, just to remind the commission what they are adopting if they so choose to adopt those findings of fact. It's also going to include a plat of re-subdivision, which will consolidate the property, and design review. Now, the commission has a recommendation on all these items. The commission is technically an approval authority on design review, though I do want to point out, and I want to get in a habit of pointing this out more often, since this is with the PUD, the council will still have final say on the plans as well. As where if it was a standalone design review, it would be sole authority by the commission. Okay, so I'll run through these quick. None of these have changed, okay? So this is not new information, so I'll just run through this quick. Okay, so what are the modifications? And these modifications are the most recent ones from the last meeting. So this is not where the application started off with at the first meeting. This is as revised and updated for the last meeting. So there is front setback relief requested, modifications relief requested along the north and the east. So the requirement is 25 feet. And the applicant is proposing 10 feet and 9 feet respectively on the streets, though the commission may recall the applicant did open up the area at the corner by removing a unit and providing, as part of the public benefit, a public parklet, which I also have a slide on that. Okay, moving on real quick, the applicant's requesting required rear yard setback relief. It's proposed as 14. Along the alleyway, the west property line, 25 feet is required. There's also a lot coverage modification requested and an open space modification. And I do believe the open space modification was originally a greater request, and that was reduced at the last meeting to where it's the 19.8% proposed and the 20% required. Moving on again, because this is repetitive. It's just an update or a reminder rather. Also in the subdivision code, the applicant requests to waive or modify that requirement to bury the utility lines. Moving on to landscaping, the applicant requests modifications for certain landscaping requirements. In terms of lighting, so there was lighting information in the packet. The plans do indicate dark sky compliant downlights, and they do indicate, they do indicate 3000 Kelvin CCT, the color correlated temperature, so that is compliant. And actually, this should be updated. The applicant did give foot candle ratings. They provided them not at the property line, but they provided them at the periphery of the light cast. I don't know the technical term for that, but that was included in the packet. The public benefit, so the applicant proposes two public benefits. So the one is the public parklet. It will have to be public. Of course, that would be part of the development agreement and close out if this moves forward. So it'd have to be public, and they proposed 2 benches in public art, as well as additional plantings and open space. And then the alleyway improvement. And so this was discussed, and I don't recall the update from the last meeting, so this could be repetitive, this could be new, but staff did verify with our Public Works Department. So that portion of the alleyway not adjacent to the site is considered a public benefit. I know there was discussion. The city acknowledges that residents from the proposed development will use the whole alleyway. The city acknowledges that, but we did discuss with Public Works, and normally what the requirement would be is that is adjacent to the site, and so that additional portion can count as the public benefit. And speaking about Public Works, there were comments in the packet, and these were updated, so this is not repetitive. These were new comments. So the alleyway improvements require permeable brick pavers. Then there was this comment about modifying this, and this is the drawing. My colleague, Senior Planner Zubin Coleman, marked that up. So this would be the southeastern exit from the development, and discussed revising that if necessary, and then also concerns with the water service. My understanding is that the applicant agreed to comply with these. I would certainly put it to the commission to ask the applicant to verify that. As of right now, there were not any conditions in the findings of fact. The commission could certainly amend those on the record here to adopt the Public Works comments as conditions of approval if the commission felt that was appropriate. That is the presentation. The commission should consider, well, should reopen the public hearing. This is still a public hearing. Take testimony from the applicant and any members of the public who are here if anyone wants to speak. And then if there are findings of fact, if appropriate, it should be adopted. And in terms of conditions, again, there aren't any there, but the commission can consider if the Public Works comment should be adopted or not, or anything else the commission deems necessary. That is my presentation.
Okay. Does the commission have any questions for Planner Burhop? No questions? I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
If you go back a page, and so the concern with water service connections, the existing main is 6 inches in diameter, drawings propose 3 3-inch diameter services. Is that anything you can speak to? Is that better or worse? Is it that the Public Works doesn't think that's gonna be enough water for the development?
My understanding is that the Public Works indicates concern, and so that the applicant's licensed professional should provide some type of review document to the Public Works Department, either indicating that, yes, that'll be satisfactory, or otherwise they will, if they concur that it's not enough, then they'll have to upgrade that.
Okay,
Yeah, and Madam Chair, building permit time as well, we check to make sure that the services are adequate for the demands that will be placed on them. And so that's just kind of a heads up from Public Works to the applicant. So we'll get an answer for that. But as they design their buildings, these will have fire sprinklers in them as well, and so they'll have to
right, I think
make
there's a
sure-
new hydrant going up.
Yep, and so they'll have to make sure to be able to accommodate the flow rates and pressures that are required, minimum required.
All right, thank you. Commission, questions from the commission? All right, happy to hear from the applicant one more time.
Anthony Oakes, attorney for the applicant. As Carl mentioned, this is not our initial plan. This was not our initial submission. We've worked with the commission, we've worked with staff to update the plan and to address as many comments as possible. And we're very excited about this project and to move forward.
All right, thank you. Don't go away. Does the commission have any questions for Mr. Oakes? All right, I guess we don't. Are you able to answer the question about the water lines?
I could add context to this. The applicant has hired or retained a third party, Nova, to design and install their water service connection. The applicant has also contacted the city to get historical flushing. The most recent reports was from, I believe, 2023 or 2024. So we will be doing our own testing. And as the staff said that as part of the permitting, we will have our third-party consultant advise on what the diameter should be. So once it's submitted for permitting, it'll be addressed and there'll be a third-party analysis given to that.
Okay, thank you.
And the lighting questions were all answered satisfactorily? Right, there were three, there were three concerns about the lighting,
Oh, the exterior lighting.
yeah, the exterior lighting.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, this slide wasn't updated. So there was an exhibit in there, and so the exhibit, yes, so foot candle measurements. So the exhibit did have foot candle measurements. If you notice, they were not at the property line, but what they were is they were at the extent, I don't know the technical term of the casting of the light, so to speak. So there were foot candle measurements on there. The bug ratings, I guess technically the bug ratings were not given. So what the applicant did for spec ratings is, so if you notice on the slide, they had the samples of the lighting luminaires or fixtures on the upper right hand, and they indicated dark sky compliant with no uplight. So that does respond to the U in the BUG. I guess that's a good point. The applicant could still provide the B and the G on that. But the U is responded to. And then, right, the last one's also compliant because foot candle numbers were given on the project. Or on the sheet that was given for that.
Okay, but we could include that as a condition.
I would, that sounds like what we need to do.
Okay. Okay. Does the commission have any more questions for the applicant? Okay, so we would be looking at adopting the findings of fact for approval of this project with the conditions that the bug ratings must be met.
The water service.
The water service.
must be checked prior, these are supposed to be fine.
Yes,
So they're gonna have to.
needs to be approved by Public Works, however they do
Well,
it.
It needs to be, yeah, to the satisfaction of code and public works, yes.
And the southeast turn, yeah.
Could we include all of the Public Works comments in our conditions?
Yes, I believe we can.
Yep, you can.
Okay, so conditions. Comments.
So Madam Chair, if I may,
Yes,
I would move that we adopt a recommendation in favor of a special use permit in the nature of a concurrent preliminary and final plan
I'm sorry,
development.
can I just take a second before we make a motion? Can we confirm no one from the public?
oh, I'm so sorry.
Well, were they, okay.
Do we have anyone from the public who would wish to speak on this matter? Does not appear to be so.
So I would move that we adopt the findings of fact recommending approval of a special use permit in the nature of a concurrent preliminary and final plan development, final plat of re-subdivision and design review with modifications from city code for 2090 to 2100 Green Bay and 580 to 582 Glenview Avenue with the conditions that the public works concerns over lighting, water service, and the southeast turn lane be addressed satisfactorily.
And just before that receives a second, the design review portion of this is subject to your final approval. The rest of it is just a recommendation to the city council for approval.
Yes.
So with that, I know Commissioner Kirch, you did mention design review. Would you be amenable to removing that portion of your motion?
So we need to do two more, okay.
Yes.
Yes, I will remove the design review from all those words that I said.
Okay. Can I get a second?
Second?
Okay, seconded by Commissioner Imchik. All right, please call the roll.
Commissioner Incheck,
Aye.
Commissioner Nanis,
Aye.
Commissioner Henry,
Aye.
Commissioner Mantis,
Aye.
Vice Chair Kirsch,
Aye.
Chair Moore.
Aye.
The ayes have it, the motion carries with conditions this item's been recommended to the city council.
Okay, and now we need a motion to approve the design review portion of this permit, the special use permit.
So moved.
Oh, I don't get to motion, oh, you're motioning.
You can't.
No, I can't motion.
You're a chair.
All right, so we've had a motion by Vice Chair Kirch. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Nanis. Any discussion from the commission on this one? We're good with the design? We felt it's been through multiple iterations. Okay, please call the roll.
Commissioner Incheck.
Aye.
Commissioner Nanis.
Aye.
Commissioner Henry.
Aye.
Commissioner Mantis.
Aye.
Vice Chair Kirsch.
Aye.
Chair Moore.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Motion carries. This plan has been approved. Design review. Okay.
And the first portion of it goes on to city council at this point, correct?
That goes on as a recommendation along with the design elements as well in your
Okay.
in the vote that you took on the design review as well.
Okay.
Commerce.
Thank you. All right. Our next item is public hearing number PUD-2025-00033 for a special use permit in the nature of preliminary and final plan development with an amendment to the development agreement, final plat of re-subdivision, design review, and variations and modifications from city code as appropriate for the proposed townhomes and condominiums for Phase 2 and other improvements at the corner of Laurel Avenue and McGovern Street, including 844 to 768 Laurel Avenue and 1682 to 1652 McGovern Street. We opened this as a public hearing previously, so we're just continuing it. All right, who will be speaking on this? Will you be speaking on this? All right.
Okay, good evening, everybody. My name is Carl Burhop. I'm a senior planner with the city of Highland Park in the Community Development Department, the Planning Division. So this is for the Laurel Park Development Phase 2. So the commission considered this originally on March 18th, and then there was a date in between, but that was a day when it was just continued without comment. So this is the third meeting, but it's the second meeting of substance, correct. Okay, so again, some of this is a recap, but then I'll get to new stuff. This is just a recap slide. This is the location. So this was approved back in the middle 2000s as an entire development, and essentially what's referred to as Phase 1, what's on the right, was approved and built. And what's referred to on the Phase 2, which is the townhomes and a condo building, was not constructed. And so that's the application that's here today to pick this PUD back up and with the amendments and modifications that are requested. And so it's an amendment to the plan development that was already approved back in 2006, but now that's back with modifications and changes and revisions. Design review, plat of re-subdivision for this, and then the preliminary and final inclusionary housing plan. That's something that's going to the Housing Commission, obviously, and then the City Council. So this is paraphrasing comments. This was in the packet. This is just to reset. Again, these are paraphrasing. This does not necessarily include everything that would have been discussed. But in general, there were concerns on style and consistency with the neighborhood, concern with fire access to the rear townhome units, concern with overall off-street parking provided, concerns with traffic flow and ingress and egress, questions on the height relief requested, discussion on the public benefit proposed. So in terms of architecture, the applicant did essentially did two things. So they changed coloring. So before it was a gray. Do I have that on the next slide? So this was the old one from March 18th. That photo on the bottom left is across the street. It's on the north side. And so this is what it is now. So it's a change in colors to red. And then the applicant made architectural changes to like the roof lines and then the windows, above the windows. And then there was just a staff comment, and I did discuss it with the applicant late last week, and the applicant appeared amenable, but staff did make a comment about changing the entrances, perhaps to match the approval from '06 or be more similar to the architecture across the street, just maybe do something with columns or perhaps triangle like the ones that were approved back in '06. And the applicant indicated to me verbally they were amenable to do that. So it's comments on the architecture. And so this, again, this is the updated renderings. The other thing is you'll see the sign change, but I think I have a slide on that. So this is the updated site plan. It was in the packet. I have 4 bullet points on here. So one is a pole light was proposed there. The major change is the building, the condo building is shifted to the west. The proposed setback is something like 50-some feet, 59 feet. The original setback was something like approximately 70-some feet. So it's been shifted a dozen feet or so. I'm sure my report had the specifics. It's been shifted west. And what that's done is that's opened up so that the applicant has provided the second access. So there's now more access into and out of the drive aisles. And from a life safety review, so I do want to be clear, the city still is reviewing that, and I do not have final comments to give. But I can state this, at a minimum, it's opened it up for just more fire truck access, period. So period, it's a step in the right direction. So, before, of course, fire trucks can access the buildings along the street, right? And so the concern is the units behind. So this has opened that up so that the fire trucks can move back behind. And of course, the applicant will have to provide no parking signage. Parking will not be allowed. And the applicant has marked that. You can't read that on this plan, but if it's on your computer screen, this is in the packet, you can read it. It says no parking on these garage aprons, or I don't even know if you can call them driveways, but no parking in front of the garages. Parking, so off-site parking was increased several spaces. I can't remember what my report said. I believe it said it increased 5 spaces. There is still an off-street parking modification. Okay, so let's get to modifications. So there's the inclusionary units not to be provided. So phase 1 was supposed to do inclusionary units. Those were not provided. So remember, this is all a PUD. It's 2 phases. And this applicant is not the one that did it for phase 1, but they're here for phase 2, and it still is all one PUD holistically, though this is phase 2, so to speak. And so one modification is the not providing the 2.4 inclusionary units that would be required by current code requirements. Now, 4.8 are required for phase 2. That's being provided for our proposed on-site in the condo buildings. And then there's that 0.8 incremental payment in lieu that will be provided. And I just will point out that modification, not only is that something the Housing Commission will make a recommendation on, but that is actually a modification for this commission as well. I want to be clear on that. So for height relief, I think I have another slide on this. There's a little nuance to it. So there's 2 buildings or sets of buildings. So there's the condo building and then there's the townhomes. So the zoning requirement is a maximum height of 35 feet for a principal building. So the townhomes are proposed to be 38 feet. So that's a 3-foot modification. There was no relief granted for that in 2006. So that's entirely an additional modification before this commission. Now for the condo building, slightly different. So they're proposing 52 feet in height. And by the way, these are the same heights that were presented back in the March 18th meeting. It's proposed to be 52 feet in height. However, the commission should take into consideration the relief that was granted, because there was relief granted in 2006 for the condo building. It was allowed to be up to 39 feet. So there's a quite nuance there. So, the mathematical difference between 52 and 35 is 17, but actually, some of that was already granted. And so the incremental or additional portion is really the difference between 39 and 52, which is 13 feet. So in the condo building, I think it's fair to say the commission is looking at that, the 13 feet request. Off-street off-street parking. So the applicant is asking for relief. My understanding I think I don't want to misquote. So if the applicant needs to correct me, please do. My understanding is that, so it's 66 total spaces required for phase 2, and 64 spaces are going to be provided. In my report, I think I might have a slide on this, but in my report, the applicant was is according to how they designate things, they want to be heavy on guest parking by 1 or 2 spaces. But what they want is they want to ask for a modification from the off-street parking requirements for the affordable units. They are providing a space for every unit, but the requirement would be 8, and they're proposing 5. But the net difference in all of that, net difference in all of it is 2 spaces of relief. There's the setback relief for the condos, and the condo, that was already granted. So that was already granted. That's from, I mean, they want to use the existing, foundations, for the townhomes, and that relief is already granted. And then the setback relief for the condo building is essentially the same. I think the relief was like 17 feet, 11.5 inches, and they're proposing an 18-foot setback. So it's like a fraction of an inch. I had this lot coverage comment in my report, and it occurred to me, even I always have to go back to code. You always double check everything. Lot coverage is only accessory and principal buildings. So I'm not sure if that would have changed. Of course, the applicant should still verify that, but I'm not sure that would have changed. What may have changed is actually the open space, because remember, there's this new access way in there now with a few additional parkings. So, and I think that was a comment in my report as well, but I should have had that here instead. Instead of saying the applicant should verify if lot coverage has changed, I should have had the applicant should verify if the open space has changed. But that was, they were both in my report. Okay, zoning analysis. This is a slide that was already presented to the commission, except for there was actually a change that I do want to point out. Former senior planner Rati Akash had presented this on March 18th. The townhomes, the setback, I believe, was 23 feet on, well, hold on, let me make sure I get this right. Yeah, so the setback was identified as 23 feet on March 18th. And since then, the applicant did provide a signed and sealed surveyor, Alta survey. So that setback is actually 20. And so the townhome encroachment is 5 into the 25, required front yard. Though I do want to point out the townhomes are actually staggered. So the setback, that's not legible there, but it says 20 feet. So it's 20 feet from the north property line to again, existing foundations. Those foundations are there. So it's 20 feet. And so that's the maximum encroachment. And so that's a modification of 5 feet. Again, this was approved back in 2006, but I just want to remind it that it's actually staggered. So in reality, the relief is only that at the maximum. In reality, it's actually slightly less for like half the units. Okay, moving on. Height. I already discussed this. I don't think I have anything to add. Yes, I knew I had a slide on this. I already discussed this. Lot coverage. I already discussed this. Nothing to say about this. So the signage changed. So before it was a projecting sign, often they're called blade signs. It was vertical, tall. So before they were proposing a 53 square foot projecting blade sign, they are now proposing this 1 foot tall by 20 foot long sign that's, I think I called it a wall sign in my report, but it's actually on the canopy coming out over the front entrance. And the one thing staff will point out is they are proposing internal illumination. Staff would suggest either halo lit or some other lighting, but no uplight. It's just a suggestion. Exterior lighting and landscaping. So there was a one-page exhibit on exterior lighting. It did indicate again the 3000 Kelvin CCT, the color correlated temperature, which is the desired temperature. It did indicate dark sky compliant with no uplights. Again, the city needs the bug ratings. And this one had foot candles, but it had them on the interior drive aisle. And so the applicant should provide that for the north and the south lot line facing lights. 6 foot high solid wood fence proposed broadly along the south property line. There's a 3.5 high ornamental black powder coat finished metal fence. Those comply with the city's codes. Landscaping plan. So the way to look at this is, so there was a landscaping plan approved in 2006. So the applicant is essentially kind of redoing that. And so staff will just point out, and it was in the packet, I did throw it in here, a snippet of it. And so there are essentially foundation buffers around the townhomes and the condo building. And there are landscaping scattered around the new vehicular use area and the surface parking and drive aisles. And the species list is varied. They had the species list in there, and it is varied. Staff would point out, this was in the report, the applicant should provide the number of the proposed plants in the actual inventory list with the species, and then open space. So yeah, that was indicated as being at 31.82%, and that's actually the one that should be verified after the changes were made to the impervious. And then these are just snips again from materials that were in the packet. This was just a slide I reiterated. This was in Senior Planner Rati Akash's side, just to reiterate to the commission the concerns that neighbors did express. And again, this is not meant to capture every comment. This is just trying to be a summary. And that is the presentation. Yes, this has already been opened. The only other thing I will say is just in terms of public benefit, the applicant originally was proposing to keep what essentially was approved back in '06, which was this open area, this open lot to the west. So now the applicant, because of the rearrangement, they had to push the building, so they're actually pushing it further into that open area. And as staff has identified, there is incremental relief being requested, modifications beyond what was approved in 2006. And so the applicant suggested that they propose something, and the commission can consider that to the requirements. I can take questions or comments if there's any.
Madam Chair.
Yes,
If I may, I just have a couple of comments on this slide. I spoke with Chief Shaggy earlier today, and we'll be finishing up the review of the fire and life safety access on the project after tonight's meeting, but before next meeting. And I just wanted to share just a couple of things. So the site does include much improved access, as you can see. If I can just use the... This is now a 24-foot wide access. Initially, it didn't exist. And it was 10 feet and 12, and then now we've got it up to 24 feet. This is also a 24-foot access. This was the main access previously. These existing foundations are where they are. In terms of fire and life safety, the one condition that's real important in this development is that there will be no parking, as Carl said, in these driveways here. So folks will have to pull into their garages. This isn't unique to this particular project, but it's certainly a required condition of any approval if it should be granted. These turns that you see here, that is essentially a turning template. That's our fire apparatus truck, and so that's why we require that, so that we can see that they can actually make these maneuvers. Lastly, and then we'll move on with tonight's discussion and all, but this area here, back here, which is the existing buildings, that access back here is strained, and this is the area that we're looking at, and we'll discuss further internally and get back to the applicant about possible changes to this island here, okay? Namely, the fire hydrant being moved closer to the building and the elimination of any island or curbing there, keeping these, the cross-hatching and the spaces, but getting rid of anything that might obstruct a turn of an engine. Okay, so that just gives you a preview. When you know there was progress in terms of much progress made by the applicant. There are some additional pieces of feedback that we're working through with Chief, and we'll work with the applicant before next meeting on those to finalize that aspect of our review. Thank you, Madam Chair. And just one other point of clarification, and Carl did make mention of this. The 2.4 units of affordable, 2.4 affordable units that were associated with phase one is a request and a modification that did go to the Housing Commission, and they were favorable with that notion, and the inclusionary housing plan as proposed as Carl mentioned, that is not merely a departure from the code. So in the world of inclusionary housing, the Housing Commission does have a recommendation requirement as part of PUDs, but they consider deviations from the code as part of what they do. This is a modification. This is something that actually comes before you, the 2.4 units. Of course, as we had said at the outset, and we would say, regardless, we want to make sure that the housing, you benefit from the Housing Commission's thoughts on the matter. But this technically, that 2.4 is a modification from the code, not merely a departure from the code that Housing Commission handles. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just wanted to be clear on this.
So I'm not clear, was the 2.4 not included in the original relief, or they
That's correct.
they
So-
just didn't bother to build them?
So back 2006, this was approved, and in the '08 crash, there was, the project went under. They had finished the first phase, and that, there were no inclusionary housing units
Why
provided.
shouldn't there have been 2.4?
There should have been. That's correct. That's why they're requesting relief now, for that. Yes, there should have been.
Phase two.
This is correct. And so it's a good question, but yes, that's correct. It didn't get done then, and the project has set foul since, and staff and the Housing Commission think that it makes sense to treat these two phases separately, and that consideration be positively considered. That's our recommendation, respectfully.
So on that point, and just to confirm, the affordable units currently being considered are all in the condo building. There are no townhomes.
That's correct.
That are affordable. Was there anything in the original PUD that stated where the affordable units were going to be located?
Yes, there was, and then there were some in the townhouse units as well. And that has been discussed at length and with the Housing Commission, and they have their recommendation. But yes, that's correct.
Okay. I have a quick question about, on packet page 92, we indicate that guest parking is reduced from 15 to 13 spaces. What would have been required?
Happy to respond. Let me look at that.
Yeah.
What packet page did you say that was?
92,
Thank you for giving me that.
part of 2B.
Okay, so I have two responses to that.
Okay.
One response is, so you're referring to a document that was created by the applicant. So one, I would ask the applicant to respond to that.
Okay.
My second response to that is, and of course I always knew this would be coming back, has to come back to at least one more meeting, and then so on and so forth as the commission sees fit. It also occurred to me that when I did the off-street parking review, so what I presented to you in this presentation and also in the report was just for phase two. And it did occur to me, you should get both. And so just from a staff perspective, that's something I also want to follow up with.
Okay.
So I don't have a response to that, unfortunately.
Something else to
Dr.
note
Fontaine.
with that. So affordable units require the same number of parking spaces as market rate units, okay? Sometimes there's conflation on that with regard to guest spaces. You do not have to provide guest spaces for affordable units in our code, okay? The guest space portion does not have to apply to those units that are affordable. So I just wanted to be clear on that. To that matter of the parking spaces, that's a modification before you. Yes, they mentioned that it's relief and that they're going to only provide, my understanding is, one space for the affordable units. That's a departure from the code that the Housing Commission would consider in terms of amenities provided. So as a general principle, the amenities provided to the market rate units and the inclusionary affordable units must be similar. So for instance, if you have a dishwasher that's included in the market rate units, you should have a dishwasher included in the inclusionary units. Does it have to be the same grade dishwasher, you know, the most expensive kind? No, but it has to have a dishwasher. So the amenities needs to be the similar, okay? And so I just wanted to make that distinction. Before you is a modification for number of spaces. Whether or not that's acceptable to not have those spaces for the affordable units is a departure from the code that the Housing Commission considers, okay?
And they haven't weighed in on that yet?
I'd have to defer to Carl on that. They did provide an approval on that, and we'd have to check the record. I'm sorry, and I would call up the applicant here, but we'll have to check the record on that. We have a preliminary approval from the Housing Commission, not final, and we have to make sure that that specifically was considered by them. So I'm sorry, we're in the
That's okay.
staff transition here, and so Carl is trying to catch up, as am I, on that particular aspect. If the applicant has more on that, I would suggest that you may want to hear from the applicant on what they say. Of course, we will verify and check with our record before, you know, any final.
Okay, thank you. Does the commission have any more questions for staff? Commissioner Engel.
Just following up on Carl's comments related to the public benefit and the condo building shifting to the west. I believe you said that there would be open space potentially provided in the space that the condo building is now going to be located. So I'm just hoping you can clarify what public benefits are being provided now in the new application, in this revised application.
Right.
I will.
May I respond?
Oh, yeah, go ahead, and then we'll have the applicant come up as well.
Yes, I agree. So yes, as staff stated, the public benefit for the 2006 approval was at least in part open space to the west of this development. You know, there's a park there in the city's right of way, but then they had an open lot, so to speak, on the west side of this development. And so originally the applicant had indicated in their original submission that that was going to be part of their public development, maintaining, keeping that. It had already been approved. And now, as you state precisely, Commissioner, the condo building is moving west. With reason, of course. There's reasons why it's moving west, but it is encroaching more into that. And so yes, the applicant should provide public benefit.
Yeah, it's a twofold, Madam Chair. And one, the public benefit that was deemed appropriate then is smaller, if the open space is smaller, because now the buildings had to shift. Why? Because of the additional access needed for fire and life safety, okay? So that's not viewed as a public benefit, that's viewed as a requirement. Okay?
Right.
To provide more access for fire and life safety, that's not a public benefit.
Right.
However, it had an impact on the public benefit because it caused the building to have to be moved, and that reduced the open space portion that they had gotten approval for as, quote, their public benefit. So that was from the 06 approval. So it's been reduced.
Right.
Second, as Carl points out, there's the incremental relief being requested. That has not, there's been, to my knowledge, no public benefit offered for that. So when you're talking about public benefits and PUDs, when they come back to you for amendment, even though a public benefit was previously approved, if there's additional relief required by the amendment, there's an incremental public benefit that's required, okay?
So as much as we talk about this condo building moved to the west and it's encroaching in that open space, is that still, does it still meet the requirements for that area in terms of like distance from the property line?
No, what's?
The distance from the property line, I
Oh, the
believe it does.
The setback is meant to the west, for
Correct.
sure. They're well beyond that. But in terms, go ahead.
It diminishes the public benefit that was.
No, I understand that. I just wanted to see if that was also now a new variance.
No.
Okay.
That is not.
All right, Commissioner Hernandez has a question.
Yeah, but just confirming, the public benefit that was granted was never actually a public benefit because it was never developed, correct? So it's not really been a public benefit for 9 years.
That's right, at this point, that's what was offered, and that part of the development didn't get developed. Yep.
Right. And I did want to circle back on a prior comment about the Housing Commission. The Housing Commission has not yet considered the final, but they will be.
Yep.
Is there any recourse for the fact that the public, I know it's a different developer, but is there any recourse for the public benefit not actually being a benefit?
No, I mean, it didn't get built, that part of it. As I had said at a previous iteration of this public hearing, the project's out of compliance, yes, in multiple ways. And this applicant is trying to bring it into compliance with different plans admittedly, but nonetheless applying for the appropriate relief and seeing to it that, you know, if it's approved, that it gets developed.
And if
A lot of unfortunate things happened during the '08 crash. This is among the hangover from that. We see this here and there, not so much with a planned development like this, but you see this in the housing market still working off some of that issue, unfortunately.
If I could just, comment briefly on what Director Fontaine stated. Commissioner Nanish, you asked if there was recourse for a failure to comply. Essentially, with the development agreement, it is in breach, and the development agreement would have enforcement actions available and specified as to what happens in a breach. But as Director Fontaine stated as well, that's why we're here seeking an amendment to that development agreement, so to not be in breach going forward.
Thank you.
Right.
All right, any more comments from the commission? Would the applicant like to come up and add anything? Welcome back.
It's good to be here. All I want to do is clarify. You guys know we've been in front of you a bunch of times. We've been listening to the audience and to our neighbors. We've been listening to staff. The plans, as you just saw, have dramatically changed. So we are trying to listen and to appease everybody and still create a project that works. Two things that I want to touch on, which is the guest parking. Just to clarify that, and I'm going to probably confuse you more, but I'm going to try and clarify that. And then the public benefit, guest parking. If you take the whole project, including the 12 existing and the existing parking that's the guest parking right now, that we just talked about, the fire chief is maybe going to take a spot away. Right now, if you take all the parking, we comply with the ordinance. But we don't like to do things easy, because we're trying to appease everybody. The HOA has said, we like that parking and we'd like that for ourselves. So we are trying to work with the HOA because they have more guest parks that they need for their 12 per your ordinance. But we're trying to say, we will commit that you guys can have those spaces over there and our residents won't use them. Okay, but in order for us to do that, we then have to ask for relief. So technically, we comply from the standard of the whole project, phase 1 and phase 2 commingled. But right now, we're trying to appease everybody, and we're saying, you guys can have those spaces. We won't let our residents use them, but as a result, we need to ask for relief. And the relief literally is 2 spaces. And the conversation with the, with inclusionary got into that, and they were accepting of that, and your staff will verify that as well. So hopefully,
Director Fontaine.
Madam Chair, point of clarification, a couple things. I didn't say that they needed to get rid of another parking space on that area over there. I said that island, that's not a parking space. That's an island, at least as depicted, with a fire hydrant on it. Fire hydrant may need to be moved closer to the building, and that made just flat, just paved surface, maintaining the parking in that area just as it's shown. It's just that this will not be a landscaped island here, and this fire hydrant would be moved in closer to the building. That would allow for fire apparatus to swing through here. And this hatched area is just a paved area. You're not supposed to park in the hatched area of a handicap parking space, but rather the fire truck could still use it to traverse. That was my comment there. As for the comment by the applicant that the entire project as a whole meets the guest parking and the parking requirements, if that is true, then there is no relief that's needed for that. Okay. This is one PUD. There are 2 phases, and I understand 2 ownership, but it's one PUD from a zoning perspective.
Right, okay, thank you.
and I apologize for misstating what was said. We just heard it for the first time. I was trying to take notes, so.
Yeah, and Madam Chair, can I just
Yes.
make one comment? And to be consistent also with what the applicant's representative stated, I did state just slightly earlier that I had presented the report only for Laurel 2. I did state that, and I did state it occurred to me, actually, needs to know for the whole development. So I just wanted to state that as well, which is consistent with what the applicant.
So the other thing briefly, again, we're trying to appease everybody. So that building, that the multifamily building did move, so there was a decrease in that open space of somewhere, it was just said somewhere 10, 12 feet. Okay, but if you also look at your public benefits, one of them is, I believe, cross-access easement. So it may be a stretch in terms of how that is being interpreted, but you have a whole list of things that are public benefits, and I'm getting objected. I'm not a lawyer. I can rescind my statement if it'd make you feel better.
No, I just want to be clear for the record once you're done.
So all we're saying is that was that area between the buildings, the existing foundation. You know, we were being asked, although it was approved with a single access point, we are being asked to provide a second access point for better fire safety for the new residents and the existing residents, as well as the request by the HOA for better circulation for their residents right now. So, you know, that is an impact on it, how we can creatively, or maybe I rescind my statement, but, you know, everything is pushing around and there's only so much land to give.
Understandable,
So-
but I'm not sure we consider that to be a public benefit.
You can
according
please
to our.
strike the record however you want to do it.
It doesn't have to be strict, and it's just staff disagrees respectfully with the applicant's statement and would suggest to the commission that you view this as one development, okay? So they're not getting a public benefit to the other side of the development. It's one development. This is one PUD, two phases. So while cross-access easements are listed as things that you could consider for public benefit, they're between developments, independent developments typically, not to benefit the parties within a development. That's their own benefit, which it's still important and they need to be there, and we definitely want to make sure they are as part of this, but that's different than a public benefit.
Absolutely, so.
So we're available, obviously, for other questions. I just wanted to highlight those two from your comments.
Okay, hang on a second. Does the commission have any questions for the applicant?
Was there any consideration to making, let's say 2.4 of the townhouses inclusionary units? That might be considered a public benefit?
I may not be the best one to answer that. You know, that got into all of the finances and where it was on just trying to resurrect this thing and trying to bring it to conclusion. I should probably start talking, I'm getting the hand up from.
Director Fontaine?
Please don't interpret it that way. I'm not objecting to what you're saying. I'm trying to advise the board, and so when I'm called on, I'm going to speak. Madam Chair, in terms of public benefits, we have, as the city, accepted a donation to the Housing Trust Fund. And most recently, that was the Wallbright had provided a $150,000 donation to the Housing Trust Fund. That was not required by code. It was a public benefit, and it did meet the code in terms of a public benefit. It was deemed to be a valid public benefit. So that's different than providing the affordable units, but it's a payment in lieu that then does go to creating affordable units through our grant making programs, and is an important part of what we do in our affordable housing realm. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Chair, before the speaker leaves, the minute taker is taking note remotely. And so it's particularly important that all of the people giving testimony give their name so that if there's any sort of issue in the record, she's not here to be able to clarify.
For the record, it's Mark Kurinsky, Kurensky, principal with HKM Architects and Planners.
Thank you.
Thank you. I should have asked for that.
Yeah. We got to remember to do that, Gail. She's out today injured, so she's doing this remote.
Okay, that's fine. Okay.
Madam Chair, can I ask one?
Oh, please, of course.
Follow-on question, please. I know the last time we saw you, there were some public comments about the homes that are to the south of this development, especially regarding those south-facing, or now I'm going to get my directions mixed up, those townhomes that are basically looking into the yards of the folks who are currently living to the south of the development. And I was wondering if you considered screening or any other measures that could help with that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we're dealing with the existing foundations, but what we did is we looked at the landscape plan. If you look at the landscape plan, we've got shade trees that are going there. You know, the challenge of that is it shade or everything, whatever. But just as importantly, we looked at the lighting there. So all of it is dark sky. It is also bug. The most important from our standpoint, when you're using low wattage elements, bug, the U is uplight. because that's what, when it's down on the ground, so that's what the U stands for. So all of we're trying to get some of the fixtures, they don't have bug ratings, because designers pick fixtures that don't have bug ratings. But they have, all of our fixtures are 0 for the U rating, which would be the most, in our opinion, the most important piece for that. The other thing is, if you look at the preliminary approval in '06, there's an open fence there. We are now proposing that it's a solid fence, because if I was living on either side, that's what I would want to have. So yeah, we're trying to take into consider their surroundings, even though there's existing foundations in place.
Thank you.
Yeah, maybe you could take that outside. Director Fontaine.
Madam Chair, yeah, that is important. They did include landscaping there. Is it deciduous or evergreen would be a question through you, Chair, to the applicant. And then secondarily, I just want to make mention that you can, make as a condition that the lights on the rear of those townhomes be fully shielded from the residents on the other side, so that they'd be shielded. So here's the light bulb, and there'd be a shield like this, so that the residents, it would still light where they need to, but it would not
Right.
shine right out there.
To avoid you putting it as a condition, if you look on the plans, they're internal cans, almost like an internal house can that's within the canopy, so it's already fully shielded, and then can only shoot down. So, but add the condition, we're happy to comply with it. Sure.
Okay. Do you have a sample of the new materials?
Yes, I do.
Would you mind showing that to us?
I can lay it out, I can hold it up, I can pass it around, I can present it and then pass it around, whatever you would like.
Maybe present and pass.
Okay.
What you guys would like to do? I'd like to touch everything.
All right, as you know, we, in listening and everything else, we are now up to 3 different bricks on this project.
Okay.
And there's a page in your packet that shows the materials that are similar. So because we've got a multifamily building, which has a different scale, and we've got the townhomes. So the package we modified to hopefully make it clear, I do not know what page it is, to show you that here's the materials that are familiar with each building, and then here's the materials that are unique to the building.
Okay.
So there are 3 bricks for the townhomes.
Okay.
There's this red brick, which is very familiar with what's across the street and everything. There is and then there's these 2 other bricks. Sorry about that. Going on. Okay?
Okay.
If they look different when they're outside, obviously.
Right. Or
But
wet, or-
they're in the family.
Oh, there we go.
I'm gonna put them here, sorry, I'm not trying to purposely put my back to you, but I am. There are 2 different stuccos. Again, if you look at the townhomes, there are 2 different stuccos that we are using. There is a lighter stucco here, and I've got this for the texture. And there is a darker, there's a bit of green in it. And that is, but we've got it as a color swatch. We don't, but it would be the same texture
Okay.
as this, but you've got these 2. The last piece is, if you remember the prior submittal where we had the corner of the multifamily building, there's a lot of silver there. We had some metal, sort of a fish scale metal paneling and all that. That's all been removed. We now have, it's almost a champagne, there's a little beige in it, but we've really toned it down. It's much more of a residential color. That is a panel on the corner of the multifamily building. There's also silver trim, metal trim for the balconies and the like on the resident, or where you see residence hall and that piece of extruded, that's the silver metal here. The last metal is a black metal. the comment that was made, and we probably have, I don't know how I can get it, but we did look at the comment that staff made about, I'm now jumping to the townhomes, of the entrances, okay? Right now, the entrance is a very traditional entrance. It's a flat roof, which has been around for hundreds of years, and it's got two cables coming down and supporting it. We looked at that, that was originally in this color, okay? So based upon staff's comments, one thing we can do is we can change it to the dark color. It's probably gonna be matching the windows a little better, and it's just in keeping. The second option is we can put a slight pitch on it, and then the third option is we can support it underneath. So, you know, if you're open to it, if we could do a findings of fact, we could bring those examples to you at the next meeting, subject to or whatever. I apologize, we just got the comment, literally we were passing emails back and forth today. But from a color standpoint, so I went beyond colors, but from a color standpoint, you can see what we have here.
Okay. Would people like to see, different entrances? Different
I don't have a problem with.
Okay.
And honestly, this is so much better than the original, so
Yeah.
much warmer.
Yeah, I think it's very much warmer, okay. And the last question I have right now, for the sign up there, do we think we would be able to better comply with our city regulations? I'm concerned about internally illuminated signs, especially in a residential district. So maybe there's some way to do halo lit letters or something else, but
Sure.
Okay.
I say that because I'm trying to think out loud.
Yeah.
Because halo works really well when you're against a wall.
Right.
Right? And we're not against a wall here.
Right.
That being said, what you can do with LED lighting right now versus even 5 years ago is so different. So you can create something that's a very soft glow, versus a one step, you can adjust it. So we could literally field adjust it. We could have it on a timer, so it's at one temperature and heat at certain hours of the day and then goes to a soft glow later. We'd be happy to have that conversation and explore.
okay. Director Fontaine?
Just a little clarity on that. So from staff's perspective, so yeah, halo lit, like essentially what we're talking about with that would be opaque letters, halo lit, backlight halo lit.
Yeah.
And so as the applicant points out, this isn't on a wall. So what would happen then is these letters would have a backing behind
Right,
them. So that
right.
would look different during the day than this. You
Yes.
see what I'm saying? This you could see through to the wall behind it.
Right.
If you were to require a opaque letter with halo lit, there would need to be a backing behind
Right.
this. So there would be that lip up the thing, and during the day, it would look like that, but at night, it would look like it wasn't there, right? That backing, you wouldn't see it.
Right.
So there are aesthetic concerns on both
Right.
ways, yeah.
Well, I
So we'd
guess
like to know more about, from a staff perspective, respectively, we'd like to learn more about, what they're proposing on the lighting for what's shown here, and also the dimensions on the lettering. So how thick are those letters? I see it here, but what are we talking about in terms of inches and such? This is 1 foot high and 20 feet long. That's not the concern. It's just, what is the lettering, the size of the lettering?
it says 2 inches up there, I think, right?
Yeah.
It's 2-inch lettering? Okay.
Yeah.
We'll have more on that next time. Okay.
Oh, does that mean front to back then? Yeah. So, well, I guess I'm, given that a lot of, variances have been requested, I'm trying to get us down to a minimum of variances being requested, which is why maybe this is something that we can, give on, so.
That's correct. If it's opaque lettering that is backlit halo, it would be considered non-illuminated. It's
Right.
another form of external illumination in terms of
Yes.
compliance with our code. That is correct.
Okay, any more comments by the commission? Okay, does anyone from the public have any questions?
Good evening, Madam Chairman. My name is Cal Bernstein. I'm the attorney for the original 12. I was not at the last meeting, was not sworn in, if you'd
Oh,
like to
then we
do
better
that.
swear you in. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the
Yes.
truth? Okay, thank you, proceed.
So on behalf of the association, and we have two of the representatives standing with me this evening, we want to begin by, number one, applauding the developer and a lot of the changes that he made. It proved that they were listening at the March 18th meeting to the concerns that were raised by the original 12. And we look forward to the completion of this development. I just want to specifically mention two items. Item number one is the two-way drive aisle, the second drive aisle. We really appreciate the developer was able to add that, creating a second ingress and egress point into the built development. And the second is the overall design, as the commissioners mentioned, it meshes much better with the existing original 12, and we appreciate that. So we have a couple questions still remaining. I forwarded the questions to the attorney for the applicant this morning after reviewing it. And the two questions that we have, and a couple more comments, is number one, with regard to the air conditioning compressors. The question is, where are they going to be located? And it's my understanding is, after hearing from the developer's attorney, that those air conditioners were going to be on the roof of the buildings. And so there was a concern by the original 12, because they're higher than the new buildings, because they're up on the Skokie Ridge, and the property slopes from east to west. Is there going to be any screening required for those air conditioner compressors? That's number one. Number two is with regarding to the height. We understand that they're asking for height relief. We're agnostic with regard to the condo building, because that's roughly about a block away from the original 12. But from the townhomes, the question, I guess this is for staff, is how are they measuring the height? Is it from grade of the individual units? Or are we talking the four corners of the building envelope? Because we wanted to make sure that even though that it may be, they're asking for 3 feet of relief, that it doesn't in practice turn to be much higher, just the way the city of Highland Park measures height, because they do it differently. They don't do it at the grade of the unit, as you're well aware. And so we want to make sure that there's not overly large structures there, because we're trying to create what this is going to look like from when you're looking from the windows of the townhomes that are up on the ridge looking west, how high those townhomes are going to be. That being said, I noticed, and Director Fontaine, I request, because I'm speaking on behalf of 12 people, that I only have a couple more minutes to go, so I would appreciate not be tied to the 3 minutes.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
They have signed off on this application to be brought before the commission for consideration, as they are part of the PUD. Respectfully, staff would like to hear what they have to say
Okay,
at this
that's
point,
fine.
as long as the
And again, I only have a
Commission
couple more
agrees.
comments. so-
That's fine.
Okay. I just look at the tip of the
Yeah, no,
clock.
that's fine.
And I'm not usually limited to 3 minutes, so it's like I'm struggling with this, okay. The parking restrictions that Director Fontaine mentioned, the original 12 have been living in their townhomes, some of them for 15 years. And they've been using the aprons to park cars for the last 15 years. So they're concerned that if there's any new requirements that they can no longer park there, that's going to impact them, because that impacts what they've been doing for the last 15 years. And it's really no fault of their own, because this is what they've been doing for 15 years. And now, but for the property being redeveloped, all of a sudden they're concerned additional restrictions will be placed on them. That's an unintended consequence of the development being completed. The other is with regard to parking on the street. I don't know, I heard a comment, I frankly didn't hear it really well. One of the residents mentioned to me that if there's going to be any street parking allocated, I'd like the staff to expand upon that if that's the case. Maybe we misheard that. And lastly, we look forward to hearing from the fire marshal at probably the next meeting with regard to any life safety issues. We think this is a big improvement over what was previously proposed, but obviously the definitive source is the city of Highland Park. So those are our questions. I'm sure the applicant has answers for those questions, so I'm asking through the chair.
Okay, real quick, does Director Fontaine want to answer any of these since.
Sure, but I just want to make sure that they're done with their comments because we did indulge a little bit longer. So we just need to be mindful of that, Madam Chair. And so in terms of on-street parking, that's regulated by on-street parking regulations. So no, nothing in this development that I'm aware of commits the city to, reserving spaces for or otherwise.
Okay, but I misheard. I apologize.
You could utilize them like any other member of the public for the time duration that's posted. And that's what can be happen there. There was questions about the number of hours that guests could park out there in the on-street parking. I had made mention in a previous public hearing that the number of hours for street parking had been changed elsewhere in and around the downtown. That could happen here, but that would be that. It's not reserved for, it's just, public parking. It happens to be 2 hours or 3 hours or 4 hours, depending on how it's set.
Right.
But that's a separate process.
Oh, right. I
Yeah,
completely understand.
on-street parking regulations.
What about the
I'm sorry.
parking on the existing acreage of the 12 towns that exist?
Parking on the existing units. I'm not sure what the question
On the new
is.
building.
So I think that's the, fire department.
Right, so, community development has a fire prevention unit, and we work closely with Chief Shagi, who is the fire marshal for the city, and I'm the building official, and so we have not finished our deliberations on those matters, but we will say for certain, no parking requirements, for the aprons is necessary to allow for the proper access, for this area. Now, as it pertains to the existing development, I believe it's marked no parking on the aprons there as well, which would make sense in that area because it's the same, going left or right suffers from the same condition.
So is this an additional condition that was in the existing PUD?
I believe so. I don't know that that was in the existing PUD. We'd have to look back at the old plans to see if it did include that note.
So with regard to the existing homeowners, again, this is for consideration, and I can have a dialogue with staff with regard to this, is that obviously, these people bought with the ability to park on their apron because it was not restricted, and they've been doing that for the last 15 years. And but for the completion of this development, then we could continue to do that. And so I think that it's something I'll have a conversation with Director Fontaine and maybe even Corporation Counsel with regard to that. If there's some way that the existing 12 can be grandfathered with regard to that, because again, this is something that they've been living with for 15 years.
Okay.
And it's taking something away that they've been using.
Madam Chair, again, this is an application that, has been brought forth, okay? That's partly a negotiation between the parties there, but regardless of what their negotiation turns out to be, we'll have to judge this from a life safety point of view, okay? And so the imposition of a new condition may be necessary. Another alternative may be that certain buildings in that lower right-hand corner there need to be set back further. That's another option. So again, we're not yet done with our review and decision-making on that, at least from staff's perspective, respectfully, and we will be back on that. But there are other alternatives than that potentially for that area if that's a real issue. And so I would advocate that the parties involved in the application discuss what their concerns are and how best they'd like this to turn out, because access is important.
Yeah, and again, this is the first time we've heard that there potentially could be this additional restriction that doesn't currently exist. So that's something we could work with the applicant on that, the developer, because we actually allow the application to go forward, and I'll work with staff and Corporation Counsel if necessary.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Wait, one of the homeowners wanted to say something also, if that's okay. Let's board member Henry had a comment or a question?
No, I'm listening to this conversation, and it seems to me that the deciding factor here isn't the HOA or the developer, it's the fire department. If the fire department says they need this space, then yeah, it's too bad that they've used it for 15 years, but if the fire department needs a space, what would you rather be able to do? Hang on, Mr. Birds.
Yeah, sure.
Would you rather be able to park your car there? Would you be able, or get a fire truck in there, should there be a safety?
And we recognize that, and listen, safety is paramount, we all can agree on that. It's just that, but for this application going forward, this would not be an issue. And so that's what we're trying to balance the two, because obviously we're not endorsing anything that could be detrimental to life safety.
No, I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, yeah.
But as I said, it seems to me that the decisive factor, the dispositive factor is neither the HOA nor the developer. It's the fire marshal and the fire department.
Okay.
That's primary. As you.
Correct. From a code of compliance point of view and from a life safety point of view, that is correct. However, in response to that, there's more than one way to satisfy those,
Without
is
doubt.
what I would argue. Okay, so
I would disagree.
one of them is the restriction that we talked about that's shown here. Another is moving buildings that are.
There may be
Right.
different ways to skin this cat.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it sounds like life safety should be the dispositive factor here.
Fair enough. Okay, one of the homeowners would like to make a statement also.
Oh, real quick, I have a commissioner question.
Yeah, my apologies. I'm not sure who the right person is to ask this question of. Are we able to move those southern buildings because the foundations are in place already, right?
Madam Chair.
Director Fontaine.
The project's in default as it stands. The foundations are there. They can be reused, provided that they provide a structural engineering report that says that they are in sufficiently good condition to be reused. Having said that, just because they're there doesn't mean that they have to stay there. If there is a overriding concern about life safety or other important matters, foundations can respectfully be removed or moved. We're not seeking that, but we're seeking a project that does work from a fire and life safety perspective.
For sure.
So
for sure.
there's other ways to approach it, as we just discussed, that don't include that. But if the parties can't agree and it needs to be a different way, that can happen as well.
Okay, thank you. All right, your name, please?
Eric Spitzer. Yes. Spoke last meeting.
Okay, then we'll assume you're sworn in. Okay.
I'm Eric Spitzer, a resident of Highland Park for 60 years. I enjoyed the benefits of living, raising my family in Highland Park, and I thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners, and Mr. Fontaine for the time that you've devoted to this. I want to throw a thank you out there to the fire chief and the police chief, both who have spent some time and have taken us to understand some of the reasons why the city is as wonderful it is to live in, and some of the restrictions, although they felt that the plan of 2006 had nothing, they would not comment on that, and I recognize that and salute them for not commenting. They were not here, and that was 20 years ago. So, but going forward, they were very vocal and again concerned about the safety, the health, and living in Highland Park and the benefits of it. And the safety came in play in both of their divisions. So we thank them very, very much for their comments. They indicated not only are they looking at their current floors and their current equipment, but because the city seems to be changing the height restrictions in occasions, the equipment that they may need in the future may be a little larger than the equipment they have today. And so that was some of their concern, and we salute them for that. So we want to thank them very much. We'd like to thank the developer for the attention that he has given, although there's many other issues that we really haven't had an opportunity to address, but we did address the top three, and those three are given the attention by the developer, their architect, our homeowners, and yourself. So we want to thank you very, very much for that. Want to put a couple call outs. The parking certainly is still a discussion to be had, and Mr. Fontaine has certainly explained that to us to the nth degree. Trust me, we understand that. The second is the setbacks and the line of sight from pulling out of what is now 2 enter and exits. When you pull out there, changing the setbacks might affect the visual blockage to be able to pull out of the development on both of them. So we'd like to just point that out as well. And then again, just thank you very much for the time and attention you're giving to this development. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Fontaine.
Just one last thing, I just want to say, there's been a lot of kicking the tires with this development over the years, and I do want to, say thank you to the development team, if you will, and the HOA for coming together and trying to see to it that this finally does come into compliance. Again, it is out of compliance as a whole, both parts, and this is cleaning that up. And so we're encouraged by that, and we're hopeful that we can get there. And so I just wanted to say that, and that's the spirit with which we've worked with the proposers throughout the project and the HOA, and to make sure that all parties are on the same page. So I do appreciate all their time and help as well.
And for sure, the city engineers will be evaluating the plan for those traffic triangles at the entrances and exits. So that's something we've seen before, so.
Thank you very much.
I know we'll see it again. All right, thank you. Anybody else from the public? All right, no more hands. Any last comments from the commission? Okay, so Carl, what is our plan here? Are we looking to direct findings of fact yet, or?
Any questions we asked, they can be answered?
A lot of times we don't answer them, but all right, would the developer like to please come up and attempt to answer these questions for us?
Thank you.
I just, for the record, I attempted to answer the questions I thought were directed to staff. I didn't
Yes.
attempt to
There's
do
questions
anything.
regarding the screening of the compressors, and there's questions about how it's measured, heights measured.
That's,
Okay.
oh, I apologize. Yes, no, that was an oversight on my part. Thank you. So,
For the, I will, on the height comment, and I will also defer to the applicant as well. So on the height thing, as the commission may recall, height in the city is measured per definitions for grade and height. To be perfectly blunt, this was handed off to me from former senior planner Rati Akash, so I'd have to verify how it was measured, but we can certainly ask the applicant if they use the average grade.
which is what's required, the average grade.
So we're, all right, there are two things that I heard. One was the air conditioning handlers and height. Let's hit the hard one first, which is height, because you just mentioned average grade. I do not know how it was calculated in 2006, okay? And we tried to go back and resurrect that. We do not know. The first thing we did is we looked at the multifamily building, and the code says that you approve says 39 feet. We said, how do they do that? And then we found the construction drawings that were never built, and it wasn't 39 feet. They were 44 and a half feet to finished floor. So we felt better about our request of 52 feet because we think that they were about 50 feet on their building. But again, to keep fair with staff, that is based upon finished floor, because each one has a lot, we don't know where the lot average grades are, okay? In terms of the townhomes, we went back and looked at the construction drawings of the existing townhomes. The existing townhomes are, and I'm looking at my notes so I don't make a mistake, are 34 feet 6 inches from the finished floor. So if you assume 6 inches of exposed foundation, but this site, as you all know, steps a lot down the hill as you're going east to west. So I can't tell you how that complies with today's code interpretation of the definition of grade. I understand how it defines height, but not grade, and that's where you have to start. So all we can do is compare our height to what was approved and then what's built out there now. So that is, so if you look at our plans of our townhomes, then we look and we tried to draw a section through our plans of the townhomes. We, because we don't know how code is going to be interpreting, we asked for 52 feet to the top of our parapet. They are at 44 feet 6 inches to the top of their parapet on the approved drawings. So on the townhomes, they're at 31 foot, they're about 34.6 for the townhomes. Again, I'm trying to compare apples to apples.
Right.
They're about 34 foot 6 inches on the townhomes right now. We were asking for 38. We could probably take 18 inches out of there as we look and fine tune it. Remember, when we first started this, we weren't sure. The architecture's changed. We've changed the fenestration and everything else. So now we're within about 18 inches of where their plan is. We also looked at the multifamily, you know, and it gets into, they had 8'6" ceilings in the multifamily. It just doesn't work with today's standards. So there's still relief we're asking, but it's a lot less. Okay. So in terms of the air conditioning handling, so we're asking for about an 18-inch differential from the existing townhomes right now. In terms of the air conditioning handlers, just like phase one, we're proposing them on the roof. And if we were doing a commercial building or something like that, we'd say, okay, let's put a screen around it. This site falls off so much. This screen, if you look at the townhomes, and again, I'm checking my notes, if you look at the existing townhome, when you drive into the development right now, that foundation is at 78 feet. So assuming the same height to the roof, the next one next door is 72 feet for our phase. It's a 6-foot differential. If you do a 3-foot screen around you're talking about a 9-foot screen wall that is just going to be completely out of place. So our suggestion and what our plan proposes is we put the air conditioners up on the roof, just like phase 1, and the buildings fall off down the hill so much that we just say, hey, this is what it is. So, to put a 9-foot screen wall up there, doesn't seem to make any sense.
Is there a parapet on the roof then?
There's, just like there's not a parapet, there's a step. As you're stepping down,
Okay.
it keeps stepping down.
Is there a way to position the air handling units so that they're less visible from
We can try.
Okay.
But, because again, the corner building, if you start at the hard corner, that foundation's at 95.
Yeah.
As you go down the hill to the multifamily building, your foundation's at 63. I mean, there's so much fall
Yeah.
that we have to be pragmatic in what are we asking to do. And basically, we're asking for nothing different than what phase 1 has right now.
Okay. Director Fontaine, you had a question or a comment?
Yeah, so, rooftop mechanical equipment should be screened, and that's from the public way. That's the viewing point.
Right.
We're talking about a different vantage point
Right.
right here, but I just want to be clear about that. So, there should be rooftop screening for the multifamily building, certainly, but that's from the perspective of the public way.
Right.
That's all. So
Right, from
I
somebody
understand his
walking
point
by.
of what he's making with regard to the other units
Right.
out there.
It is screened from the public way.
Yeah,
So does the commission have other questions for us?
any more questions from the applicant?
Just one other thing, Madam Chair, if I may?
Yes.
So, yeah, they do need to provide, and I understand that some of the past documents were not legible or were not that, they were scanned and they were not that legible. They did find some other documents as well. What I will tell you is the relief that was approved is the relief that was approved. Regardless of any construction documents, we're going to go off of what the city council approved as what happened last time, to the best of our abilities.
right.
Okay, so just know that, no matter what other things said.
Well, and regardless.
Having said that, I would say that, yeah, we need the height calculations based on the average grade, today's code, and that's what that is, and that just needs to happen. So they
Right.
need to come up with the average grade for the property and calculate the height variations that are needed, and then we can understand what we're talking about in terms of variations in height. It is useful to understand, when considering height variations, what the local grade height would be as well, like if you were standing right at the front door.
Right.
That's just for perspective, right? That's not really where the relief is taken from. It's taken from the average grade. So we do need those calculations. If they weren't provided before, they do need to be provided to get an accurate account for the height relief. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Bernstein, come on up.
Yes, we appreciate the developer. I mean, we're not trying to design this on the fly right at the Plan Design Commission, but we appreciate the willingness to reduce the height. I think that talking to the representatives, that's fine with the HOA. So the 18 inches below would be satisfactory.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. Do we?
And we don't really care about the condo building. We're just talking about.
Right, no, because it's
condos.
far away.
Yeah, exactly.
So, okay. Any more questions? All right, so,
It would seem to me, given the life safety issues in particular, that I wouldn't be comfortable directing findings of fact, and I'd rather just
I think we
continue
need to
this to
continue
a
the
short date, if that's acceptable.
Okay, so the next available meeting is 2 weeks from today. That would be the Tuesday, June 17th, Plan and Design Commission, same time, 7 PM, same location here.
is that amenable to the applicant? Okay,
Madam Chair, just one question through you to the applicant would be, can they provide that average grade exhibit? Because ultimately, we could draft findings, sure, but we're going to need to
no,
know.
I don't think we're ready to draft findings, but I think they did hear that they're gonna need to
Okay.
find that average grade and provide it on some of the documents at some point.
We should be ready with the fire life safety perspective. So
Wonderful.
that I could speak to.
And we will have heard from the Housing Commission one more time?
Yes, that is correct.
There'll be hearings.
Okay.
Clarity on public benefit.
And yes, and I think
We need that. They have to consider.
Commissioner Mantis said that, you reminded us that, yeah, we need to have more clarity on the public benefit, so.
Yes, yes.
So-
Because at this point, what it is it's a reduced public benefit from what was previously approved.
Right,
And it doesn't account for the incremental relief, obviously, in that case.
Right.
It doesn't account for the relief that happened before.
and for all I know, it wasn't enough beforehand, I don't know, so.
We're not gonna, that was approved,
then, this
that's
is
water under the
now.
bridge, but we know it's less than that, so it can't be less than that. And then there's the increment beyond what was previously approved
Right.
that isn't accounted for.
Then if I may, Madam Chair,
Yes, you may.
I would move we continue this public hearing to our June 17th regular meeting.
Second.
Second, okay, all in favor? Aye. Any nays? No nays. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
As, what was that?
Can I leave these at home in 2 weeks?
Do we need to see them again?
If they change, bring them back.
If they change, bring them back. Otherwise, I think we're good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One for each.
Please let me remind you, as you leave the building, please keep the volume down, because otherwise all that noise comes up the stairwell and prevents us from doing our business.
And Chair, can you make sure that it's clear that it's not enough to just go downstairs and have a conversation in the lobby? You have to actually exit all the way out of the building?
And it's a lovely night to do
It's a lovely night to do so. It probably hasn't turned cold yet. Okay, moving on. All right, let me see. Okay, so the next item is opening a public hearing, PUD-2025-0051 for a special use permit in the nature of a concurrent preliminary and final plan development, final plat of re-subdivision and design review with modifications from city code for a 5-story, 19-unit multifamily development at 1632, 1640, and 1646 Second Street. So let me read the opening statement. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Highland Park Plan and Design Commission. My name is Karen Moore. A quorum of the Plan and Design Commission being present, the members of the Plan and Design Commission will now introduce themselves for the record from my right.
Kristen Incheck.
Josh Natus.
Danny Mantis.
Steve Kirch.
Ken Henry.
The Plan and Design Commission is charged with hearing applications for rezonings, plan developments, and subdivisions under the zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations of the City of Highland Park. In all matters, we recommend to the City Council based upon the testimony presented to us in the hearing. We are required to decide cases within 45 days after receipt of the transcript. All testimony is under oath. Both applicants and others who wish to speak on a particular case should present specific evidence as to why a proposal meets or fails to meet the standards for the relief requested. For clarity of our record, only one person at a time will speak, and all questions will be directed through the chair. We ask that you make every effort not to be repetitive in your testimony. Finally, we will make every effort to adhere to the schedule prepared. For tonight's hearing, if additional time is needed on a matter, it will be continued until the next available agenda. With that, I open the floor for the staff to the Plan and Design Commission to read into record proof of publication and ownership.
Proof of publication and ownership are available for viewing at the Offices of Community Development, 1150 Half Day Road in Highland Park. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Who is presenting to us first?
Chair, I would like to introduce to the commission Patrick Hoffman. Patrick is a planner too with the city. He's been here for just a bit over 2 years. Patrick is the Zoning Board of Appeals staff liaison, so he staffs those meetings every Thursday for at least the last year and a half. And so Patrick will be presenting and did review this plan development. Thank you.
Wonderful. Welcome, Mr. Hoffman.
Hello. Yes, so I am Patrick Hoffman, planner 2 with the city, and I will be speaking on this PUD at 1632 through 1646 Second Street. So the applicant, Fulton Developers, proposes the project of a 19-unit condo development. This development will be 5 stories with a lower level parking. The proposed access will be along the alleyway that is connected to Walnut Street, and the additional parking and landscaping will be provided. So the applicant requests the consideration of concurrent preliminary and final plan development with modifications from the city code. A plat of re-subdivision that has not been submitted yet by the applicant, so we won't be discussing it today and will be reviewed in future meetings, and also reviewing the design review. So the existing conditions. The property in question is currently these 3 lots. Lot 14 is here, 1632 Second Street, currently improved as a single-family home. The second lot is lot 13, 1640 Second Street. It's currently a multifamily and 2 units. And the last is the lots 12 and half of 11, 1646 Second Street, and that is a 10-unit multifamily. So in total, this will be removing 13 units from the City of Highland Park.
And can you quickly point out Second Street and Walnut Street for us on the map?
Yes, this is Second Street here, and this is Walnut Street, and this is the access to the public alley.
Thank you.
The neighborhood context, this is sitting in the RO zoning district. It is surrounded on the west, north, and east by the RO zoning district, and to the south is the RM2 zoning district. The Woolbright development is located approximately here, which was also the Fulton development team, and that is just right across the street from where the new development will be proposed. So the PUD request, this is kind of the rendering of the project. It is a 19-unit condo building, proposing 38 private parking spaces, 5 guest parking spaces along the west, adjacent to the alley. The perimeter landscaping, pedestrian access along Second Street, and parking access, again, off the alley. There will be a driveway for the underground parking that will be connected to the alley as well. I'm going to go through 4 of the elevations and provide you from what perspective. I also just want to note, it is a requirement for this RO zoning district that you only get 4 stories. They are asking for 5 stories. So what this red line is indicating is that anytime you go above the 4-story requirement, you have to do a 15-foot step back from the property line, and that is what is indicated here, and it will be indicated on the other elevations as well. But this is from the east perspective from Second Street. This is the entrance to the new development. This is the perspective from Walnut Street or south. This is where the entrance to the alleyway for the development will be. From the west, from the alley, there'll be some guest parking located here. There's some patio spaces, and then the driveway to go down to the parking garage is located here on the north side of the development. And then this is the elevation with the shared shared property line of the adjacent neighbors to the north. This is the first floor plan. I'm not going to go through every floor, but this is the first floor. This is where the entrance of the project is. And I'll also note that the 2 inclusionary units that they are proposing with this development are located on the first floor and are highlighted in blue here. This is the parking site plan. So this is the driveway going down, and then this is 38 parking spaces. And this is on the exterior of the building. This is where all the 5 guest parking spaces, and this is the alley here. And then this is also the driveway. This is just segmented to have it on one. They comply with all the zoning setback requirements. I just listed them just to have them available for you to look at. It is in the RO zoning district, but it also, for the Article 23, is the neighborhood frontage, but they comply with all relevant setbacks for the proposal. And here's just a site plan if we end up having any questions on those setbacks. It's a little hard to read, but. So Article 23, There's a couple things we're gonna follow up with the applicant with the build to zone percentage, the glazing percentages. There is one modification that they will need for the neighborhood frontage. It is a requirement that there is a primary entrance on both frontages for the neighborhood frontage requirement. They are only offering one on Second Street and not on Walnut Street, so that is a modification to the city code. For the height, in the RO zoning district, you are allowed 51 feet or 4 stories. The proposal is 64 feet and 5 stories. I've generally put everything in red if it is a modification to the city code to kind of make it a little easier. Lot coverage, the RO requirement is 33.3%. That is for the primary structure and any accessory structures on the property. They are proposing 49%. And they are complying with the lot area and density for the zoning district. In order to utilize multifamily in the zoning district, you need 21,780 square feet, and per 871 square feet is a unit. So they could build 28 units. They're only proposing 19 units, and their proposed lot area is 24,500. So this is a neighborhood context for the heights of other apartment structures in the neighborhood. This was provided by the applicant. I added these little notes on the side just to make it a little easier. This goes from 1 to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's maybe a little tough to read on the screen. But as you can see, they range from 65 feet to 58 feet in height, and the number next to it is from the Lake County Assessors. This is the year that these structures were constructed. And again, to reiterate, they're asking for 64 feet in height.
Thank you for providing that, because every building that seems to come now to downtown is asking for more height, more height, more height. And you know, we're having to give a variance to everybody, all of a sudden now everybody's got like a 65-foot building downtown. And, so, all right. And you did say that the 5th floor of this would be set back?
That is correct. They comply with that.
Okay.
They showed it from where they are, they didn't put it from the setback, they put it from, or not from, they put it from their setback, they didn't put it from their property line. So some of them look like they're getting close, but there is plenty of room and they comply. The landscaping. So they are removing 9 protected and key trees, which per the city forester requires 20 trees to be planted to mitigate those losses. And then for the requirements for the property itself, for the Chapter 150 requirements, this table below is what highlights those. They need 21 trees and 121 shrubs. The applicant is proposing to plant 40 trees and 125 shrubs, so they are compliant with, they may be 1 tree short, however, because when this was constructed, we were going based off of what the zoning requirements were, but this 20 and this 21 trees are addition, like they need to be both, so they need 41 trees total for the property, in which
Right.
they're at 40 right now, so they will need a relief of 1. That's something we kind of came across, and I've talked to the city forester pretty recently, so we will talk with the applicant and have that ready for another mitigation and have a more context for the next meeting.
Can I make a comment on that?
Yes.
Just real quick. So to be very clear, because Patrick and I worked on that together and we did the table together, and it shows green with surpluses. So in the staff report, we did include a note that we needed to verify this was correct, because there's a chapter 94, which is the tree code for the city, and there are replacements in that where if you tear down trees on the property, you have to provide a replacement or you have to pay for trees to be planted. And so that's its own thing. The landscaping code in Article 22 of the zoning code is separate and in addition to. So to be very clear, what we presented in the report and what we presented there, we are now confirming and saying, actually, we got to update this because we got to make sure that those are separate numbers. I just want to be clear on that. So there may in fact be a modification from the landscaping code. Now, the commission should know, this is a smaller site and take the context as appropriate, but we try to call balls and strikes. Just want you to know what's going on.
Thank you. Speaking on the materials, there wasn't a added exhibit discussing the materials. There was a little listing in the narrative statement describing them a little bit, but I'll have the applicant speak more on the materials, and I just provided the rendering again. So for the off-street parking, 37 off-street parking spaces are required for this site. They are offering 38. And they are required for 2 guest parking spaces, and they are offering 5. So they are exceeding both requirements for the site. 3 points for the public benefit. First, they're proposing to replace the sidewalks. We haven't discussed this with Public Works on whether this is just a requirement or not. But that is the first stage of their public benefit. Second is the affordable units. They are making them larger than required. However, the Housing Commission hasn't met and discussed any of the inclusionary portions of this project. So once that meeting occurs, we will kind of update this public benefit and get a little bit more context for you. And lastly, a donation of $10,000 for the downtown streetscape contribution. And again, we're gonna review this for adequacy for the public benefit, but this is what the applicant has proposed so far.
Okay, do we have any questions for staff?
I got a little more.
Oh, sorry. Keep going.
Well, good. I added just some short notes on the design review. There was a lot of comments on the staff report, but just pointing out the foot candles were exceeding along the property line on the south and west portions of the property lines. And that they will also need relief from the fencing and planting buffer requirement for the off-street, or not the off-street, for the guest parking, because you need a buffer between the property line and where the parking is located. That would render the parking useless because it is against the alley and they wouldn't be able to get into the guest parking spaces very effectively. So this is a portion they would have to receive a variation from. And there was no signage provided, so that will be reviewed and provided for the next meeting. Again, just to reiterate, the re-subdivision has not been, there isn't a draft before you yet, and will be at the next meeting. Housing Commission, just a few notes. They are adding, or they're proposing to have 2 inclusionary sites, and they are required to have 3.2. So they are proposing to do a payment in lieu of 1.2, or the proposed 200,000. Again, Housing Commission hasn't met on this to provide any kind of additional details, and we will follow up once that meeting has occurred. The traffic impact study. The traffic impact study was a kind of a refresh from the Woolbright traffic study. There was some inconsistencies with the one they submitted for this project, pretty much showing some of the Woolbright figures as in the units available and not changing the address in a certain location. So we've identified those inconsistencies with the applicant, and they're working on updating that. We have also sent this out to our third-party reviewer to provide context on whether this is an acceptable reuse of the impact study. So we'll have further comments, and we'll be talking with the applicant on the use of this traffic study. Other city divisions, I provided all those commentaries at the end of the packet for you to review. If you have any additional questions, that's things that we will be working with the applicant to work with and likely change with the proposal. And there were 2 public comments received. One is in your packet. One was submitted after the posting of the packet, and Carl emailed those to you earlier today. So yeah, those are 2 for you. And yeah, that's, okay, so that's what I have. Commission should open up the hearing, take testimony, and consider the application and deliberate. And if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to assist.
Okay, any questions from commission? So I have a quick question. If you go back to the floor plan with the inclusionary housing, I noticed that two of them, the two units are on the first floor. And my understanding, and I guess I want to hear from the housing commission, is my understanding was that the inclusionary units are supposed to be kind of spread out through the building and not grouped together.
That is correct. Yeah, that is a comment that I have put forward with our staff member who runs the housing commission, and that is something that they will look at and comment on.
And, you know, maybe there's the benefit that they both have the outside access will outweigh the fact that they're both kind of next to each other. So I don't know, that's not for me to decide, but for me to bring up, so.
That is an item that would be considered by the Housing Commission as a departure from the code if they were to allow that clustering, if you will. The idea is to try to evenly distribute throughout the building.
And then the other note I had, I cannot find it, but in the KLOA study, it does indicate that there were 3 tandem parking spots, which I think is a carryover from the other the Woolbright. There's not 3 tandem spots in this garage, is my understanding.
There is not, yeah.
Okay.
This,
Madam Chair, if I may just make mention of something before we go.
Yes.
My understanding is the applicant is looking to update that traffic report, so I just point that out. But yes, please go ahead, Patrick.
Staff had 2 comments on the lower level parking garage. One comment was related to bicycle parking, that the applicant should identify that and that it comply with, you may recall the commission actually made a recommendation on that type of parking requirement. Then the other thing, and I actually don't know if this was in the staff report or not, but the only spot I think Patrick's pointing at is just that one spot would be the only one that's challenging. Wow, I mean, different spots may have different challenges, that goes without saying. But that one is, the one on the top, it would be the top one on the left, that one might be challenging.
That looks awkward, yes.
Yeah. And then I'll also point out that the ADA spaces are located directly in proximity to the elevators.
Wonderful.
yes, the elevators are located here. These are the 2 interior ADA spaces, and one of the guest spaces is also an ADA spot right here. And it's not labeled, but I believe this is the ramp to a patio to get to the building.
And is there an entrance on that side of the building, on the west side?
Yes, yeah, yes, it's this ramp area. I don't know if there's an additional one. I think this might be the only one, but I'll have the applicant clarify that.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Oh, yes, we have Commissioner Imchik.
While we're looking at the parking diagram, I'm just curious if there's a credit available for proximity to the metro station because it's so close. Are they able to reduce the number of spaces given how close it is to the train?
Can I make 2 comments? So, one, I don't believe they asked for that. Do you happen to know? And
no.
Number 2, I'll measure it right now because I know the distance. I believe it's a 1/4 mile, and I'll just measure that and respond to you in a moment.
Fabulous. Just thinking if they need to lose that one space, if that's not feasible.
That space could be bike parking.
There you go.
They are 1 over the requirement, so even if they did lose that one space, they'd still comply.
Yeah, I don't know how you'd get in and out of there.
Yeah, I don't have an aerial of how close it is on the PDF or the PowerPoint.
I'd have to verify, but I'd have to verify this, but I think it, as the bird flies, it's within the reach, but that's not how people walk. That's not how people walk, and you can't just walk over buildings. Staff can follow up with that comment.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll write that down, thank you.
Yeah.
Just trying to give the
The
developer
applicant
all
has
help.
not
that they-
requested, is that?
No, I don't believe so, but we can also
applicant has not
defer to the applicant on that as well.
Okay.
Okay, any more questions from the commission for staff? All right, is the applicant ready to present?
sitting so long, I feel like I should stretch a little bit first, but I'll spare you of that. Good evening, Madam Chair, Plan Commissioners. My name is Elliot Wixer. I'm an
Okay, and I'm
attorney.
gonna have you swear in
Oh,
real
yes,
quick.
ma'am.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Wonderful, all right.
I am an attorney. My office is located at 500 Skokie Boulevard in Northbrook. I'm, full disclosure, also a resident of Highland Park. I really will just speak on zoning issues, and I think Planner Hoffman addressed most issues. I just want to highlight a couple for your benefit and the benefit of the public as well. This development is obviously in the RO district. It is the most dense district, if you will, in the city, allowing for the most density per square footage in the city. So with apples to apples comparison, the developer, Fulton Developers, who I represent, is only indicating that they will build 32 units with, if they get it's 32 units in total they could build with the credit for affordable housing. And if you consider that, what they're suggesting is at 19 units, it's far less than what is permitted in the RO district. This comes to you with a PUD, which is required, so you can modify it, and I think it gives you a lot of, as a commission, a lot of room to make such modifications. But this developer has a history of not asking for a lot of modifications in their development. As you know, Fulton Developers, and I'm here with Mark Muller and Kyle Fell for Fulton, local builders here. I think that, just from even living in town, you probably know of Fulton. They built Laurel Court row homes, Laurel Apartments, Laurel Residences, One Highland Park, Park Sheridan, and Woolbright, which we touched on in relation to the traffic and parking study, which I'll touch on in a moment. This development is going to be called the Walton, and it's an amazing project. I think what makes it amazing is the amount of units, in considering the size of the lots and the property, and the minimum amount of variations that the developer is asking for. Essentially, I think it really would consider one, which is the height variation, which I'll talk about in a moment. But the lot coverage issue at 49%, I believe the lot coverage is approximately 33%, and they're asking for 49%. But historically, in developments like this, not just the ones we looked at with the height variations, but all over the city of Highland Park, and I think most other communities, lot coverage is always an issue for these types of multifamily developments. At 49%, if you did a survey, I think it really follows the other developments quite nicely. So I would like to demonstrate how really outstanding the development is and how minimal the requests are considering. So first of all, we looked, Planner Hoffman showed us the side yard variations, or the side yards. They're not only not requesting variations for that, but they're not building to the maximum permitted. In some instances, it's 2 times the minimum. In other words, it's set back from what's permitted by 2 times, and that includes in the front yard. The front yard has a 15-foot requirement, and Fulton is suggesting a 30-foot setback, which is quite substantial. The balconies are stepped back in excess of what's required. There's a plethora of open space on the property. Of course, historically, Fulton has always parked underground. There'll be no parking above ground except for guest parking. They amazingly meet all the parking requirements and exceed those. They meet or exceed the guest parking requirements. The affordable units, as Planner Hoffman suggested, are enhanced and are really beautiful units. There are beautiful amenities in this building. There'll be new sidewalks if the public benefit is found to be acceptable to both the city and to this plan commission. There'll be new sidewalks along 2nd Street.
There's a $10,000 payment that Fulton proposes to make as an additional public benefit for the amenity streetscape donation to the city. And that leads me to really, I know there's two variations, but the one that's probably most impactful, which is the height from 51 feet to 64 feet. I think if you already have seen the other buildings, Fulton does not exceed, they're right sort of in the middle of those other 5 buildings in terms of height at 64 feet. I would ask you to consider one other mitigating factor other than just the side yard, the front yard, the step back of the building, and the step back of the balconies. I'd ask the commission to consider the topography of the building really the building will sit 2 feet lower on average from the actual street, so it'll mitigate the height of the building by another 2 feet. As I mentioned, the other properties in the area, I think this is a very typical development in the RO district. I think the height, based on the way this developer builds, will be very mitigated by all of the elements I just suggested. I think the way this builder builds, it'll be an excellent, excellent development. I did want to touch on the traffic study. It was for Woolbright, but the parking is obviously irrelevant since it was for the Woolbright project, but the traffic study, given that the project's across the street, is basically the same. We're not asking you to consider that. The developer did order and will have a traffic study, I believe, this week or next, which we'll submit to the city, and by all preliminary comments from KLOA, there's an indication that there are no issues similar to Woolbright. I do want to mention that Fulton has a long history of community reach out before coming into these commission meetings. They reached out to about 250 neighbors. I know some are here tonight, and thank you for coming out. I want to be very certain in my comment here to say that they listen. The 250 letters that were sent out resulted in a meeting of about 40 to 45 people in person. A lot of the comments were super positive, and some of them were concerned about the height. And I think it's an obvious concern, but I think this zoning district, in fact, probably calls for that type of height, given the RO district. The neighbors who I think are most impacted are across the street on 2nd Street. So given the setbacks in the front yard, given the step back of the building, given the step back of the 4th floor, or the 5th floor, given the step back of the balconies, this is really, I don't want to say you can't see the 5th floor, but it's nicely done. And I do also want to say that in this zoning district, in the RO, you could have an office building there as well. And again, I never come in and say, this is what could happen, but for context only, you could have a medical building that builds out to all the way to the, front setback, the side setbacks and the rear setbacks, and even with a 4-story building that is permitted with a lot more density and perhaps parking at a street level above ground, maybe not such a beautiful development like the others we've seen Fulton do. I think this development's a home run for those reasons, given the alternatives that are potentially possible by another developer, I suppose, on the site. I know that, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but again, given the minimum relief, the additional plantings, the materials that the developer will use, the very high-end product that this developer is known for, and the developer's commitment to this community by virtue of not just living here, not just being part of the community, but by historically the types of development that this developer has engaged in. I think that the property values for our neighbors nearby and afar will greatly increase, and the beautification of 2nd Street in this area, which I think is needed, will be accomplished. So I am not a design and review person. I can barely pick my ties when I need to put a suit on in terms of color. So I'll leave that to Mr. Muller, who would like to have a few comments, but I'll pause to see if you have any specific questions for me. Otherwise, I can come back to the podium after Mr. Muller makes his presentation. Thank you.
You shouldn't have any questions right now.
Thank you.
And can we just get a spelling on the last name?
Oh, sure, could you
A
spell your last name?
Wiczer.
Welcome back. Will you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay.
Good evening, Commission members. I am Mark Mueller, President of Fulton Developers. Kyle Fell is with me here, and we've worked closely over quite some time on this project. At Fulton, we have been developing projects in the North Shore for more than 20 years. And Highland Park has always held a special place in that journey. We have had the privilege of contributed several developments, and I just wanted to, this is the Park Sheridan, which we recently completed across the street from the Art Center on Sheridan Road. This is going to be a render of the Wallbright, which is directly across the street from the proposed project on Walnut Street, and we're anticipating completion by the end of this coming winter. One Highland Park, which is just around the corner on Oakwood Avenue, was completed in 2022, so it's almost going to be 3 years from now. The Walton will be the seventh multifamily project that we have done in Highland Park. Some of the other projects are Laurel Court row homes, which is across the street from the project we just saw being presented earlier today. Laurel Apartments also across the street, Laurel Residences, and we feel that with this project we were able to transform Laurel Avenue, which is one of the main arteries to the downtown of Highland Park. The Walton will be a 5-story residential building with 17 market rate units and 2 affordable units. It will have amenities like a club room, fitness center, shared outdoor spaces with seating and lounge areas. There will also be an underground heated garage with private storage lockers for each unit. The access to the garage is something that we try to carefully place based on what occurred on the prior project, which is we placed it, the access is off of the public alley, and that way is to minimize any impact on neighboring properties to the site. The trash collection will be managed below grade. It's at the base of the ramp, so that will keep the dumpsters out of public view. We feel that we have put a lot of thought into the design and scale of the building. There's, the zoning, our calculations say that we can do 32 units, including affordable units by right, but we have chosen 19. These allow for more green space, enhanced landscaping, and generous private outdoor areas for each unit. We are seeking a 5th story, which we feel is consistent with the other developments within the RO zoning district. The buildings we're showing to the north, to the east, and to the west are 5-story buildings with similar height as the one we're proposing. The 5th story is intentionally set back, which we're showing on this cross-section, and that's to reduce the perceived height and mass of the building. The 5th story setback is required by code, and even though there's 4 or 5 other buildings on that same block that that are 5 stories, ours will be the only one that has the step back as intended in the code. The other ones have 5 stories flat. There's no step back on the 5th story. The elevation that was previously shown shows the red line, which is the setback to the property line. So we could potentially build up to the first vertical red line. And then we're showing the second dotted red line. That's a step back that's required in the code. So we're going another 15 or 20 feet beyond that step back. And the front setback, instead of 5 feet, is 25 feet. So we're stepping back the building an extra 20 feet, and then the fifth story, an additional 15 feet. These are some renders that we hadn't included in the packet because we're still working on the project. This is a render of the front entry of the building. In regards to the materials that we're using cast stone, which is similar to what we have used at the Park Sheridan. It's paired with an aluminum composite metal panels, which are highly durable and low maintenance. The stone facade will reflect the timeless character of nearby civic buildings like City Hall and the library, reinforcing a cohesive architectural language. Based on the zoning, we could do a denser and closer to the street building, but we have intentionally chosen a lower density that prioritizes quality. We're not trying to squeeze as many units as possible. Just a couple of weeks ago, we hosted a community meeting at our office where about 30 to 40 neighbors attended. The feedback was thoughtful and constructive. We sent notices to hundreds of residents because we're in a very dense area of the downtown. And we remain committed to an ongoing dialogue with the residents and neighbors. Thank you. Cal and myself are here to answer any questions you may have.
Do you have any questions yet, Commissioner? No, oh, yeah,
have one.
Commissioner Nanis has a question.
I was looking at some of the renderings and then also on the civil drawing on packet page, what is it, 160, 162. And there seems to be an inconsistency with how the curb cut and the vehicle lay bay that you guys have rendered, because here it shows it like as a curb cut with two cars, and on that rendering, it shows it going all the way down the street, and on Google Maps, it shows all the way down the street. So I just wanted to get an understanding of like what actually is there and what is proposed, if anything is being changed to what's existing. Yes, I have a slide that shows that, which is right here. So if we look at the right of this image, we're showing in red are the existing parking spaces along 2nd Street, which are 3 of them. Is there a pointer here?
You have to just go ahead and use the mouse however you want.
Oh, okay.
It's a bigger.
Oh, okay. So 1, 2, 3 are the existing parking spots that we have right now, which are public parking spots. We are replacing one of those parking spots by a short-term parking, and then we're adding another parking spot right here, which right now is a curb cut to the existing house. So it's being replaced by a short-term parking spot. And then there's another curb cut further down over here, which is just getting replaced by green space and part of a parkway. And then in regards to the guest parking, we are only required to have 2 parking spaces, and we're providing 5. So there's 3 more parking spaces for guests on site than the ones required by code.
And those 2 short-term parking spots, are those included in the parking figures proposed, or are those not included?
No, those are not included.
Yeah, they can't be.
I think because they're on the city street, so they
Correct.
don't really count.
Yeah, only parking on private property can be counted toward the zoning requirements for parking.
Thank you.
Any more questions from the commission? I'll jump in with, are we gonna be able to manage the snow on the driveway down to the garage? Where's that gonna go?
That's going to be a boiler with a snow melting system,
Okay,
and that's the same thing we've done on all of our prior projects.
okay.
access,
Go ahead, I'm done.
access, through the alley is both on Walnut and then goes around to Green Bay, correct? So theoretically, as people come in and out, they can access either way.
Correct.
Did you have a question, Mr. Hoffman? Oh, sorry. I saw the pen up and I thought there's a question. Okay, you have someone else who would like to speak? Okay. All right, does anybody did you have something?
Chair, I have a question for staff. Mr. Hoffman, if you can tell me, or maybe Carl or somebody. When we talk about 33 units being allowed on this space, and the applicant is only asking for 19, what is that based on? 33 units is based on what square footage?
So, per unit, in the RO zoning district, 871 square feet is how much land you need per unit. The proposal is 24,500 square feet. So I believe, if I remember correctly, that is 28 units, that they're just allowed outright. And then, the inclusionary units is what makes up to get to the 32 that they spoke to.
The market rate unit
But
bonus
what
is
you're saying,
associated.
what you're telling me though, as I understand it, is that when we speak of, whoever speaks of numbers of units for the property, for the area of the property, it's based on 871 square feet per unit?
Yes, it's based off the land area. So if they had more land, they could get more units, based off of that, metric.
But that's particular to the zoning district.
Right,
So it
understood.
varies.
It's the RO district, I
Right,
get
for
it.
that RO district,
Okay.
that's correct.
But it
You're
does-
not obligated to build to the maximum density, that is the maximum.
No,
That is
I
the maximum
understand that.
density.
My question was really more geared to, the size of the building is large, okay, in my estimation. Not exceedingly large perhaps, it certainly seems to fit into the neighborhood. But when we're talking about 19 units versus 33 units allowed, we're not talking about there's necessarily a whole bunch of extra space, we're talking about larger units.
Yes, correct.
So all developments, have multiple constraints,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You have the envelope of the building and you also have parking constraints. And
Yeah,
so that's
I'm
one
just
key
trying to
aspect of it, yeah.
understand how that works.
So I believe they just make the parking requirements and maybe they're one space over. So, at a building of more units would be limited by its ability to, without relief, do the parking. Yep.
If I may, the current zoning allows you to build up to 5 feet away from the property line. So potentially, the footprint of the building could be 30% larger or 40% larger if we were to maximize the footprint. So we could potentially have many more units in a building that would be much larger in size.
Just in case the question wasn't sufficiently answered, I think what we're getting at is the floor area ratio, how you calculate that. And that is a function of the lot, the square footage of the lot. And then based on how big that lot is, that tells you how many, each zoning district will allow you a specific amount of units per square foot. So you just divide that unit square footage by the lot square footage, and then once you do that, that leaves you with how many maximum units you would be allowed. And as Director Fontaine mentioned, you don't have to build up to that.
Yeah, that's just like there's a minimum unit size that you could use as the divisor.
Right.
Thought it was explained very adequately.
Oh, Commissioner Imchuk, down there.
Thanks. I really like this development. I think it's thoughtfully done and it fits with the surrounding neighborhood. And like the scale of it seems like it's in line with what's around it. One question I have, I'm not really sure how this could be resolved given the size of the parcel, but I know that you're removing some key and protected trees. And it looked like from the analysis, there could be like 40 trees that need to be somehow incorporated on this site. I think the site plans that are in the packet have like 7 or 8 trees that are shown currently. And so just like looking at this rendering, for example, I can see like 6 of them, and it looks like there's plenty of trees for the size of the building. So I'm just not sure how you're gonna be able to incorporate the number of trees that might be required per the code, which is a concern of
There's
mine.
some trees which we took out from the render just to be able to see the building. But when you look at the landscape plan, there's more trees than the ones that were shown on the render,
Okay,
Eventually, there'll be a landscape plan that we get to view.
which is right here.
gotcha.
So if you
Okay.
look at on the southeast corner, these trees here, I know you cannot hear me if I'm not on the microphone, but those trees to the southeast corner are not shown on the render. So there are new trees that we're planting to add. And we're happy to add more trees. We were just somehow limited we had as many trees as we could for the site. Also along the public alley, we're adding trees. Each one of those circles are new trees, also the ones to the north.
Would the ones in the parkway count toward your requirements?
I believe so.
Actually, a couple of things going on here, Madam Chair, if I may interject. So there are landscaping requirements, and Carl can get into that and Patrick can get into that in details with regard to the project proposal. When you take down trees, the forester, chapter 94 has a series of other requirements. So if you're not able to do replacement, there's a payment in lieu that can be provided for that. And the forester does those calculations. That's dictated by chapter 94. So we could talk now, shift about to the landscaping requirements under the zoning code, chapter 150. So that just kind of answers that question. There's a lot on the property, and you were making mention of that. That's handled by chapter 94. Then there's a chapter 150. Now that you've cut everything, what's the landscaping requirement? Okay. So I turn it over to Patrick on that.
Yeah, I just want to add one thing. So they are proposing 21 shade and ornamental trees, and they're proposing 19 evergreen trees. So with working with city forester, they could do a payment for the one tree that they are short, that I'm currently thinking that they are at. So there's room to work with it. So it's not like, oh no, they're 20 trees short.
Thank you.
Any more questions by the commission for the applicant? Commissioner Nance.
One question, just looking at your executive summary that you guys outlined, on the fiscal impact, I'm just curious how you got to that $750,000, tax, bill for the 17 units, because doing the math in my head is roughly $40,000 a unit per year. So I just was curious how you figured that number out, and it seems a little high, but.
It's based on the estimated value of the building, and then we are doing, I'm not sure if we did $2.8 per square foot, which is, it's usually now the taxes are closer to $3 per square foot. It used to be 2.5. But just based on the estimated sale of the building plus 2.75, and I think it might be even higher than that. Okay. We were conservative in our assessment.
Thank you.
Director Fontaine.
I mean, ultimately, that number moves. That's just an estimate. Ultimately, when buildings, are built and then sold, the numbers then become real, right? So this is kind of targeting and just, estimating on where that price point might be and what the taxes might yield.
Okay, I'd like to get, unless we've got any more questions, I'd like to get to comments from the public while we still have time, because we generally have a hard stop at 10 o'clock. So if you're a member of the public and you'd like to come up and ask a question or speak to this, please come up to the podium and I will swear you in, and you'll have 3 minutes each. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, please state your name and spell your last name for our minute taker.
My name is Jana Hill,
Okay.
Hill.
And I do see we have a document from you in our packet, so go ahead.
Okay. I am a full-time resident at 1633 Second Street, across the street from the Walton project. The proposed project should not be approved without major design modifications to fit the current zoning policies of density, bulk, safety, and character for residential properties in the Laurel Walnut neighborhood. Similar surrounding properties adjacent and within the Laurel Walnut section of the Central Business District have open, expansive corner setbacks, mature tree canopies, park-like green space buffers such as water features, gazebos, arbors. The Walton has a 4-foot wall. Located at the narrow collector street of Walnut and the character street of Second, this will further concentrate and increase scale on a small intersection, narrow streets, nearby buildings, and this neighborhood. Traffic and pedestrian safety are an issue with this particular design. This project utilizes a back alley onto Walnut near the Green Bay Deerfield intersection, a very busy and highly used commuter avenue on a crooked intersection where people fly over the hump coming down Walnut. Current traffic in this area has increased considerably since the previous study that was included in the packet, but was for the Walbright. And it was taken during the COVID recovery period when all of the metro lots were empty. Now they are full, traffic has increased quite a bit. The previous counts, and therefore the previous counts from that old Walbright study shouldn't be updated, but they should be replaced. And this would be the counts, this would be including the alley, this would be the new driveways. There is another alley on the other side of the arbors. All of those things should be considered. This project proposes a 4-foot solid fence around the property perimeter, exceeding City Code 143's maximum of 3 feet within a 25-foot setback. This will block driver views at the narrow Walnut and Second Street intersection and that access onto Walnut from the primary alleyway to and from the property parking. Highland Park has a master plan, a general business district plan, and city codes to guide development in a careful manner. Allowing this project to proceed as proposed does not advance the public benefit or HP development goals. Please ensure any recommendations for approvals strike a balance of scale and save the character of our streets. The charm of Second Street and the Central District is why we made Highland Park our home.
Thank you for your comments. Next. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, name please.
My name is Dale Cahodes, Cohodes. I live at Arbors Condominium at 1633 Second Street. On the west side, just of the building, directly facing the proposed Walton building. Much of what is planned for the Walton is counter to the city's master plan. Second Street is a designated character street, and much of what is being proposed takes away the character which we have enjoyed. The size and bulk of the Walton runs counter to the plan. The proposed height of the Walton is 5 stories tall. The height is much taller than our Arbors building, even though it is 5 stories. But our first floor is considerably, it's 5 feet below grade. Walbright Fulton Developers' nearby project, which is 4 stories, is much taller than our building. One might argue that the building directly west of the proposed building is 65 feet tall, but as a healthcare facility, it was permitted higher height allowances. I would very much hope that the height variances requested by Fulton Developers not be granted. Their planned height will create a canyon-like quality on Second Street. I request that you limit the height of Walton to only what is allowable in the code, 51 feet. Save the character of our street. At his presentation to the community, Mr. Muller made the point of stating that the setback for Walton will be 25 feet, not the allowable 5 feet. My reading of the code requires a 25-foot setback, and we hope that dimension is maintained. In the master plan, there is also a commitment to diversity. This building, as well as the Wallbright, reduces the diversity both architecturally and economically. The removal of the smaller homes on Second Street and Walnut has reduced the diversity of both. Highland Park says it's a diverse and inclusive community. However, when the peaceful, lower-income residents are eliminated because of this kind of development, it becomes less diverse. It has become increasingly difficult for people who work in Highland Park to live there. Please take into consideration the concerns of the neighbors.
Thank you. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right.
My name is Rick Atterbury, Atterberry. I live at 1660 First Street. I'm a little disadvantaged here because a good section of this was based on the incomplete and out-of-date traffic study that was put in the packet, which I find a little bit disingenuous that bad information was distributed. But we'll get to that. As the commission considers this development, there are neighborhood impacts to be considered, of course, and others have addressed some of the appearance of the proposed building. I'm interested in just a couple of long-term and several construction-related concerns. I'm heartened that the city has already discovered that the developer wanted to run the sanitary sewer into a 6-inch line under Second Street and has pretty much mandated to be connected to the 8-inch line under Walnut. That's good. Second, section 151.008.b.7 of the city code may require the developer take the lead in burying utility lines adjacent to the property. For the Woolbright, the developer sought a variance and was granted. I don't see that even mentioned one way or the other in the proposal, and at the neighborhood meeting, we were told the power lines would not be buried. The city may wish to be more consistent about enforcing that requirement for public safety reasons. Third, the traffic study, as I said, was completely out of date, was created 3 years ago for the Woolbright, and doesn't even mention Second Street at all. And Second Street's the location of this building. The other concerns have to do with the construction itself and the period between the properties being vacated and the demolition. At the Woolbright site, the same developer did not ensure those empty properties were secure. They were not. Judging by the number of alcohol containers on the property, which grew over time, there may very well have been parties being held. At the very least, the attractive nuisance was home to feral cats, skunks, and possums. I'd ask the city make the reasonable request that fencing be erected as soon as the properties are vacant. Such a large construction site is unavoidably noisy, but what is avoidable is loud music coming from the site. Starting construction activity before 7 a.m. on weekdays and 8 a.m. on Saturdays in direct violation of city ordinance. And the winter-long snapping and cracking of plastic tarps covering large openings on the Woolbright building. When the wind was blowing, it sounded, forgive me, like gunshots 24/7 for weeks on end. Please help us. This is the third consecutive large-scale project the neighborhood has had to contend with in recent years.
Trash blowing from the site has been an issue. Some of the plastic sheeting mentioned either blew off the building over the winter and got stuck way up in the trees on Oakwood. And there's been no policing of trash throughout the neighborhood. The ask here is that the developer and city be as proactive as possible to protect the interests of the neighbors during this multi-year construction period. This doesn't start with your approval and end with the turnover of the key. There's 2, maybe 3 years in between where the neighborhoods are impacted. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else from the public? Come on up.
Hello.
Hi, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, name and spell your last name, please.
My name is Giselle Atterbury, and that's Atterberry. And I also live at 1660 First Street. I was invited to the informational meeting, and I appreciate that. And I appreciated the opportunity to see both black and white drawings and images in color. It is a bit surprising that we're seeing a steely gray building in a neighborhood that is pretty much dominated by brick. It will stand out, and maybe that's the point, a sort of explanation point at that corner of 2nd Street. But what concerns me most deeply, and I think maybe no, it doesn't concern me most deeply, but what I think might be corrected most easily is that wall around the largest perimeter of the building. The wall that goes to most of the sidewalk area on both Walnut and 2nd. Again, 48 inches high. Okay, so a bit below my shoulder. I guess I'm rather average in height, but imagine going around that building in a wheelchair. You're looking at a wall just beyond you with a rather thin layer of shrubbery, perhaps in between. How will that wall age through time? What materials are there? It looks like a rough barrier. It looks like something you might see in a more urban setting as opposed to what is really a very suburban looking area. If you look across the street at the arbors, there are some shorter barricades there in brick, but a large expanse, much more of a percentage of landscape goes down to the sidewalk. And it's very gracious, it's very green, it's very welcoming to pedestrian traffic. It seems suburban as opposed to urban. And I know you have a higher wall at the building across the street from the Arts Center. Forgive me, I don't remember the name of that development. But that is a more commercial area. And I think it's just a different sort of vocabulary that's required. So maybe that wall could be parceled out and maybe some fencing in between that would be irons, just some other alternative, because that does seem very harsh. And especially in contrast to the condominium building at the end of 2nd Street, at least that block of 2nd Street. That's very open. You look up into a courtyard as you pass by as a pedestrian. And again, likewise, at the arbors, you look out to a great variety of landscaping. Here you would look, if you are, of normal height, you would, I don't know if it's normal, if you were of my height, you would look over the 48 and you would see patios and green area that would be covered. So I think trying to show off as much greenery as possible would be beneficial.
Great, thank you. I know it's real hard to have a new building come into our neighborhoods, but I guarantee you that every time one of those new buildings came onto 2nd Street and 1st Street, there was probably a lot of, upset neighbors. So we should all keep that in mind, that we want to be as warm and friendly to our new people as, we hope that people would be to us if we were new. Okay, any more comments from the public? Come on up. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay.
My name is David Goldman, Goldman. I'm a former Highland Park resident. I'm also a developer of residential properties. I just would like to commend the developers on an excellent presentation. I think the project fits very well into the community, and I commend them on use of very high-quality materials, and I look forward to seeing this project completed. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So I would think the next thing we need to do is choose a date for the developer to return so that we can have continue the meeting to a date certain.
Yes, we don't.
I'm going to give them any more feedback or?
Okay.
Oh, is there more feedback?
Well, I just have one, I mean, again, this is, I guess I'm trying to decide whether I should bet the over-under on how fast this one sells out like all the others. But my one concern, it is asking for a tremendous amount of relief. And I'm not convinced at this point that the public benefit is commensurate with that. I have no problem granting the relief, but because it is a big number by the code for that extra story, I think we're going to need a bigger number on the benefit.
I agree, that wasn't really covered in our presentation today.
Well, I mean, again, these are, you guys put together a really good
Yeah,
presentation.
I think
When I don't have a question for you, that's
that's true.
That's saying something.
But I think it is a nice looking building and it pairs well with its sister building across the way, so I kind of like that.
Can you inquire real quick?
Yeah, come on up, please.
Just for the next meeting, can you, just so we're clear, some direction on expectation?
Okay.
I know the traffic study will be done by then.
Okay.
Is there anything else that the commission would like us to bring back with, for that next meeting, other than traffic study?
Public benefit,
Okay,
was there anything else we had that, I think take a look at the,
Carl and I were also discussing, we do want this to go to the housing meeting before coming back to you.
okay, I don't know when that is.
That's really important, Madam Chair. You need to hear back from the Housing Commission.
I agree, I just don't know when it is, so.
Yes, so we're talking about.
Working on
the-
that,
yeah,
okay.
The best date available.
Let's see. So I would definitely take into consideration the 4-foot-high fence around the area. Maybe there's other things that can be done to separate the building from the street. Take into account the comments on the landscaping and the number of trees.
The bike ordinance.
The bike parking.
ordinance.
And then I think there was a comment about the utility lines and what can be buried and what can't be. And I do understand that we have worked with other projects and, ComEd doesn't want to do it because it disrupts their power network and they don't want to bury the lines. So as much as, for some new developments, it works to bury new lines. For other developments, we just can't force that to happen.
That is a comment that would be addressed during the subdivision portion, but since we're waiting on a draft for that, that's kind of why that comment hadn't been addressed.
Okay. Oh, come on up.
There's no power lines abiding our property. That's why it's not part of the relief we're seeking.
Okay. Thank you. Solve that problem. That was easy. If they were also easy. All right, is that enough information to go on?
yes, Madam Chair, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for presenting. All right.
Hearings?
Oh, so we need
In terms of
to,
hearing date, then, Madam Chair, I defer to Carl and Patrick on what they were ciphering.
Yeah, so, Tuesday, July 15, 7 PM, same location here at City Hall.
so you said July 15th?
Yes, Tuesday, July 15.
Okay. Can I get a motion to continue the meeting until the 15th? Continue this issue till the meeting on the 15th?
July 15th. July 15th.
Okay, do we need to, is that a voice vote?
It's a voice vote.
Okay, so
Take
all in
that as
favor of
notice.
continuing? Oh, I thought I had a second over here, I'm sorry. I thought I had a second from Commissioner Henry.
You got it.
All right. Commissioner,
Now you
okay. So all in favor, continuing this to July 15th here at City Hall. All in favor? Aye. Any nays? No nays, okay. So that,
So, just for the record, Madam Chair, so this item's been continued to July 15th, this public hearing. It will not, abutters will not receive additional notice. Your notice is actual, July 15th, in this room, City Council Chambers, 7 PM. Thank you.
thank you, and I'll ask again that as you leave, take your conversations all the way outside so we can wrap this up. We have people who want to go home and go to sleep.
Thank you for your patience.
Yes, thank you
hanging
for your
around.
patience, and thank you for all your comments, which we appreciate. Okay, we already did our resolution, so is there an administrative design review update?
I have one item.
Okay,
There was an approval just at the end of May here for the property 2055 Green Bay Road. I can't remember the use, but it's a commercial use. They had, it's a brick facade along the south, so it doesn't face the street, it faces the south, but I think you can see it when you drive. Long story short, they replaced what appeared to be old windows that were filled in with bricks, but then they went ahead and they put glass block in there, and so that was approved administratively.
okay,
That's my administrative design review update.
okay, our next regular meeting is June 17th. Is there anything you would like to prepare us for?
So there will be, the commission may recall that it made a recommendation on a land use interpretation for the land use tables for towing and impound lots. So that special use permit will be on that agenda. Laurel Park 2 is continued to that date. There will be a PUD amendment and special use permit for a community living facility for the 1651 Richfield Road property, formerly referred to as the Alberge, I believe. And then there will be a PUD amendment for 445 Central Avenue, the downtown property on the east side of downtown on Central, if you saw the sign go up. And then there was a continuation of a zoning code text amendment regarding timeshare related uses. So we're staying busy.
Yes,
Business is good.
business is good. Okay, case briefing and all?
Madam Chair, just real quickly, and we're finalizing ordinances now, but the council did hear the bicycle parking recommendations from the commission and approved adoption, a partial adoption of the recommendation.
Okay.
Items that were not approved but asked to come back at a committee of the whole meeting later in the year included connections to existing and proposed bike paths and the actual requirement of a specific number of spaces of bike parking be provided. Things that, those two items will be discussed further at a committee of the whole, so they did not pass. Instead, they decided to discuss those further. The ones that did get approved were the incentive item, whereby you could convert an existing parking space to bicycle parking without requiring or triggering a variance for loss of a parking space. The other item that was approved was, hold on one second, I'm trying to recall. Oh, yes, the internal circulation paths for large parking lots. So lots over 150 parking spaces should have paths within them connecting the various rows of parking so that pedestrians can traverse those parking lots safely amongst all the cars going back and forth. So that's a brief synopsis on that, and we'll provide updates further as we finalize ordinances and share that with you ultimately so that you know and advise accordingly.
Great,
Okay.
thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Any business from the public? The public has left.
Alex is still here. This is great. He didn't leave. I thought he was gonna leave with that, you know,
Yeah,
that's
no,
it,
maybe.
it's done, you know, so it's awesome. Thank you for being here.
All right, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Henry, a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Imchuk, all in favor? Aye.
Great.
No nays?
Just in time. Alex, so this is it, right? You're not gonna be at another meeting?